Welcome, traveler. Tonight you will journey far beyond your bed, beyond your time, into the heart of an ancient city. Close your eyes, let your breath grow slow, and imagine the streets of Rome in the first century. Here, life unfolds in rhythms both ordinary and eternal. The rising of the sun over tiled roofs, the hum of markets, the quiet of baths, the roar of the Colosseum, the laughter of banquets, the prayers at temples, and at last, the silence of night. You are not a stranger here. You walk among Romans as one of them. You share their bread, their wine, their rituals, their dreams. Every sound, every scent, every light upon stone will guide you deeper into calm. Let go of your day. Let the world outside this story drift away. Breathe gently and step with me into ancient Rome, a city that does not sleep, yet carries you softly toward rest. You stir from sleep slowly, as though surfacing from deep water. The first thing you feel is the roughness of the blanket covering you, its coarse wool brushing against your skin. It is heavier than what you are used to, warm but scratchy, holding the faint smell of smoke and oil. The second thing you notice is the air. It carries a mixture of scents, unfamiliar yet oddly grounding. There is the faint tang of olive oil burned through the night in a small lamp, leaving a subtle sharpness in the room. There is the earthier smell of clay, stone, and plaster walls warmed by yesterday's sun. And beneath it all, a quiet trace of bread baked hours before, drifting faintly from somewhere outside. Your eyes open slowly. The ceiling above you is not smooth plaster, but painted beams of dark wood crossing overhead. Between them, faded patterns are drawn, once vivid, but now softened by time. The light that touches them is not the cool glow of electricity, but the gentle wash of the rising sun, filtered through a small square opening near the ceiling. The beam of light is golden, dust motes swirling lazily within it, drifting like tiny spirits in the stillness. You shift against the bed, not a modern mattress, but a simple wooden frame stretched with leather straps, topped by a sack filled with straw and wool. It creaks faintly as you move. Your hand brushes the edge of the blanket, finding the texture of woven fibers, uneven but sturdy, the handiwork of someone who spun and dyed the wool by hand. You sit up slowly. The coolness of the stone floor greets your bare feet, a chill that seeps gently upward, grounding you in this unfamiliar space. You look around the small chamber. The walls are plastered, painted in faded red and ochre. Faint outlines of birds and vines stretch across them, fragments of decoration that once must have been brighter, almost alive. Near the doorway, a clay oil lamp sits on a low table, its wick darkened, but still holding the faint scent of burnt linen. Beside it rests a small bronze cup, a jug of water, and a half-eaten piece of coarse bread, its crust hard, but still carrying the faint aroma of wheat. The silence is not complete. Through the open doorway, the muffled hum of the city filters in, the low rumble of wooden cart wheels over stone, the rhythmic clop of hooves, the distant call of a merchant, his voice already rising with the morning. It is soft, blurred by the thickness of the walls, but it is steady, alive, reminding you that outside these walls, a vast city is already awake. You rise from the bed, the floor cool under your weight, and move toward the doorway. As you pass, you touch the wall with your fingertips. You linger in the atrium, letting your eyes adjust to the light. The square of open sky above is pale, touched with the pink and gold of early morning. A bird crosses the opening, wings spread wide, its cry echoing briefly before fading into the hum of the city. The impluvium, the shallow pool at the center, reflects the changing colors of the sky. Ripples move gently outward from a droplet falling from the roof tiles above, disturbed by the morning dew. The water is cool, pure, drawn from the aqueducts that feed the city. You crouch and dip your fingers into it. The sensation is refreshing, sending a small shiver through your hand. You lift the water to your lips and it tastes faintly of stone, clean yet ancient, as though carrying the memory of distant mountains. Around you, the house begins to stir. From one side, the curtain of a doorway shifts, and a young servant girl enters quietly. Her tunic is simple, belted at the waist, her hair tied back with a strip of cloth. She carries a small bronze pitcher, which she sets carefully beside the pool before bowing her head slightly in acknowledgement of your presence. She does not speak, but her movements are fluid, precise, practiced from years of routine. In another life, in another time, you might greet her with words. Here, you simply nod, sharing a brief, silent recognition before she withdraws again into the shadowed hallway. The atrium smells faintly of beeswax from the polished wooden furniture. A low chest sits against one wall, its bronze fittings catching the morning light. Beside it, a pair of sandals rests neatly, their leather straps softened by use. The faint scent of laurel drifts from the household shrine, the Narration, where small statues of the Lares, the guardian spirits, stand upon a niche. Tiny offerings rest before them. A sprig of herbs, a bit of bread, a few drops of wine dry dark upon the stone. The presence of the shrine fills the room with a sense of quiet reverence. It is not a grand temple, but here, in the center of the home, it feels no less sacred. You pause for a moment, listening to the silence as though the walls themselves are waiting. Beyond the atrium lies the tablinum, a larger space opening toward the garden. From where you stand, you can glimpse the greenery beyond. Vines curling up wooden trellises, the pale blossoms of lilies nodding in the gentle breeze. The scent of damp earth mingles with the sharp tang of crushed herbs carried inward on the air. A faint sound rises from the street outside. The hollow clatter of hooves striking stone, the creak of a cart laden with goods. The call of a vendor, his voice rolling upward in a rhythm that carries even through the thick walls of the house. You move closer to the doorway leading out. The wooden frame is worn smooth from years of hands brushing against it, and as your fingers glide along it, you feel the grooves of time carved into the grain. The curtain is pushed aside gently, and with a single step, you are closer to the threshold between private life and the city beyond. Before you step further, you pause. The atrium behind you holds its stillness like a breath, the pool shimmering softly, the gods watching from their niche, the house alive with unseen motion. And ahead you sense the vast, unending heartbeat of Rome. You stand at the edge of the atrium for a moment longer, listening. The sound of the city grows clearer as the morning advances. It is not a single noise, but 100 overlapping layers, weaving together like threads in a vast tapestry. Each sound carries its own weight, its own meaning. Somewhere close, the sharp bark of a dog echoes against stone walls. A woman's voice follows, scolding gently, her words soft yet firm, a tone you recognize even without understanding every syllable. From farther away comes the chant-like cry of a seller of fruit. His voice rises and falls, carrying the names of his goods in a rhythm honed to catch attention. Between these voices are the steady clatter of sandals, the low rumble of carts, and the ringing clang of a hammer striking metal. You step slowly toward the doorway. The heavy curtain moves aside with a whisper, the fabric coarse beneath your fingers. Beyond lies the vestibulum, the narrow entrance passage leading from the house to the street. The air here is cooler, touched with the scent of stone and faintly damp from the night. The walls are painted in deeper colors, rich red and black, lined with simple geometric borders. A single oil lamp, set high in a niche, flickers faintly, though the daylight has begun to dull its glow. Your footsteps sound louder here, echoing softly in the enclosed space, each step reminding you that you are moving closer to the threshold of the outside world. As you walk, your eyes fall upon the mosaics beneath your feet. They are patterned in black and white tesserae, small stones set in careful arrangement. Shapes of vines and birds stretch across the floor, their design simple but precise. The smoothness under your feet speaks of countless others who have walked this same path before you. Masters of the house, guests, servants, strangers at the door. At the far end, the wooden door stands tall. Its surface is marked with lines of age, the bronze fittings dulled but strong. One side is already open slightly, letting in a blade of golden morning light that slices across the floor. Through the opening, you catch your first true glimpse of the city outside. Cobblestones stretch away, uneven yet gleaming faintly with morning dew. Shadows shift across them as figures pass. Men in short tunics carrying baskets, women with clay jars balanced carefully on their hips, children weaving between them with laughter quick and bright. The air is richer here, filled with scents carried from every direction. The sharp tang of fish from the market, the sweetness of baking bread, the acrid smoke of burning charcoal. You pause just before the door, hand resting on the worn wood. The domus behind you is a pocket of stillness, a world contained, private, sacred. The street beyond is alive, uncontained, vast. Crossing this threshold feels like stepping from one existence into another. You breathe deeply, the cool morning air filling your chest. With one slow movement, you push the door open wider. The light of Rome, the sound of Rome, the scent of Rome pour in, wrapping around you like a tide. The first sensation that strikes you as you step into the street is the warmth of sunlight against your skin. It falls gently, not yet harsh, carrying with it the promise of a day that will grow hotter as the hours stretch on. The second sensation comes almost at once, the shifting, layered movement of air. Unlike the stillness of the house, the street breathes. It moves with the passage of bodies, with the stir of carts and animals, with the sigh of wind funneling between tall stone walls. You look down and see the stones beneath your feet. Each slab is worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, grooves cut into the surface where iron wheels have passed again and again. Water from last night's cleaning of the street still lingers in shallow channels, catching the light in thin silver threads. A mule snorts as it walks by, hooves striking sparks against stone. The sound is sharp, ringing briefly before fading into the chorus of the street. To your left, a vendor has already set up his stall. It is little more than a wooden table propped against the wall, but upon it lies a neat arrangement of fruit. Figs split open to reveal their crimson flesh, bunches of grapes still damp with dew, and small yellow apples that gleam faintly in the sun. The vendor's voice is steady and clear, practiced from years of calling to passers-by. He lifts a fig toward you, his smile quick, his hand rough with the work of handling crates and baskets. The scent of bread drifts toward you from farther down the street. Following it with your eyes, you see the open doorway of a small bakery. Inside, the fire of the oven glows faintly, its heat spilling into the street. A man pulls loaves from the flames with a long wooden paddle, setting them in neat rows upon a counter. The crusts are golden, steaming, their smell rich and comforting. A line has already formed, neighbors exchanging quiet words as they wait. Above, laundry flutters from ropes strung between windows. Tunics, shawls, and sheets sway in the breeze, their colors muted but bright against the stone walls. Voices float down from these upper floors, a mother calling to her child, a laugh shared between women leaning from opposite balconies. A cart rumbles past, its wooden wheels creaking. It is piled with amphorae sealed with wax, the faint scent of wine escaping through cracks in the lids. Two men walk beside it, steadying the load as the mule strains forward. The rhythm of hooves and wheels joins the pulse of the street, blending seamlessly into its music. Children dart past you, bare feet slapping against stone. They chase one another in circles, laughter ringing out, their tunics flying loosely as they run. One boy pauses long enough to glance up at you, eyes bright before being pulled back into the game by his companions. Their joy is unrestrained, cutting through the deeper tones of work and trade like a clear bell. Everywhere you turn, life unfolds in small but vivid scenes. A woman kneels at a doorstep, scrubbing the stone with a brush dipped in water scented faintly with herbs. A man sharpens his knife against a whetstone, the scrape of metal rising and falling in measured rhythm. Two neighbors stand close, speaking with animated gestures, their voices rising and falling with the ease of long familiarity. The city does not overwhelm you. Instead, it enfolds you. Every sound, every scent, every glance is part of a whole, and you find yourself breathing in time with it, as though your own heartbeat has joined the rhythm of Rome itself. The farther you walk along the street, the more the city reveals itself. Every step brings a new sound, a new face, a new detail that ties the great body of Rome together. Ahead, the rhythmic clang of hammer against metal draws your attention. Turning a corner, you find a blacksmith at work, his stall open to the street. The forge glows a dull red, heat radiating outward, carrying the sharp scent of iron. He strikes with practiced force, each blow sending a shower of sparks into the air before the metal yields to his will. Children linger nearby, eyes wide with fascination, while their mothers call them away, reminding them of errands yet unfinished. Beside the smithy, a cobbler bends over a sandal stretched across his knee. The smell of leather and pitch mingles with the metallic tang from the forge. His fingers move quickly, steady from years of mending soles and straps. Around him, scraps of hide lie scattered, their edges curled and darkened by use. He glances up briefly as you pass, nodding once before returning to his work, the rasp of his awl filling the narrow space. The street widens slightly into a small square. Here more vendors have gathered. A woman arranges earthenware jugs upon a low table, their shapes round and sturdy, their clay painted with simple designs of birds and waves. Each vessel is different, each bearing the marks of the potter's hands. Beside her, a boy stacks bundles of herbs, rosemary, thyme, mint, their fragrance cutting sharply through the heavier scents of the square. From one corner, the faint strum of a lyre drifts into the air. An old man sits on a stool, his back bent, his fingers moving lightly across the strings. The tune is simple, almost repetitive, but it carries a soothing rhythm that softens the clamor around him. A few passers-by drop coins into the small bowl at his feet, their faces softening as they continue on their way. The air shifts again as a baker pushes open the shutters of his shop. He sets a tray of small honey cakes on the sill, their golden tops glistening in the sunlight. The sweetness mingles with the smell of yeast and smoke from the oven, wrapping the square in a fragrance that pulls every gaze toward it. Within minutes, a line begins to form, coins changing hands quickly as children tug eagerly at their mother's sleeves. A dog trots across the square, pausing to sniff at the edges of the stalls. Its fur is dusty, its ears alert, its tail wagging as it searches for scraps. A child crouches to offer it a crust of bread, and the dog accepts gently before vanishing between the legs of the crowd. At the edge of the square, a water seller fills clay cups from a large amphora. The liquid glitters as it pours, cool and clear, drawn from one of the aqueducts that thread their way into the city. Men pause in their work to drink, wiping their brows before returning to the rhythm of the day. The seller's voice calls steadily, offering refreshment to all who pass, his tone practiced yet friendly. As you stand in the center of it all, you feel surrounded not by noise but by harmony. Every clang of the hammer, every cry of a vendor, every footstep on the stones seems to fit together, forming a living music that is uniquely Roman. It is not chaotic, but ordered, as if the city itself knows its own rhythm and invites you to move with it. The sun has now risen higher, and its light spills freely over the rooftops. Shadows shorten, falling sharply across the cobblestones, while the air begins to warm with the promise of the day. What was once a gentle murmur of activity has become a steady, vibrant hum, the true rhythm of morning in Rome. The street swells with movement. Merchants pull carts into position, stacking jars of olive oil and amphorae of wine in tidy rows. Women carry baskets filled with vegetables, their voices rising in chatter as they greet one another. Children weave fearlessly through the crowd, their laughter bright and unrestrained, chasing a ball of rags down the street. From the upper floors of the insulae, the tall apartment blocks that line the road, shutters swing open. The clatter of clay pots being set on windowsills drifts down, along with the occasional splash of water as households pour away the remnants of yesterday's cleaning. Laundry flutters above your head, catching the sunlight in shifting shades of white, ochre, and faded blue. The mingled scents of smoke, herbs, and bread become richer now, pressing close around you, impossible to separate yet deeply familiar. A priest passes by, his white robe edged in purple. He walks steadily, accompanied by two attendants carrying baskets of incense. The faint, sweet smoke trails behind them, curling upward before dissolving into the bright air. People step aside to let them pass, their heads bowed briefly in acknowledgement. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer still rings faintly in the distance, joined now by the sharper rhythm of chisels as stonecutters begin their work. You hear the roll of iron wheels over stone, the cries of mule drivers urging their animals forward, the occasional laughter of men gathering in small groups to share news of the day. Everywhere there is motion, everywhere there is sound, but nothing feels disordered. Each detail, each voice, each gesture belongs to a pattern larger than itself. The city is not simply waking, it is alive, stretching outward in all directions, its heartbeat steady and unyielding. You pause at a corner, the sun falling full upon your face. The warmth soaks into your skin, mingling with the cool breath of a breeze carrying the scent of the Tiber. For a moment, you close your eyes and let the world settle around you. You feel the pulse of Rome beneath your feet, the voices of its people in your ears, the taste of its air upon your tongue. When you open your eyes again, the city spreads before you like a living tapestry. Every thread shines with its own color, gold from the sunlit walls, red from the tiles of rooftops, gray from the ancient stones, green from the gardens peeking between houses. And you, newly arrived, are now part of this weave. The day has begun. The eternal city calls, and your journey through Rome is only just unfolding. The soft murmur of the city beyond the door still lingers in your ears, but you turn back now toward the domus. The home itself feels like a small world, a universe contained within walls of plaster and painted stone. Every corner speaks of rhythm and ritual. Every sound within it carries the pulse of daily life. You walk slowly back across the atrium. The light has grown stronger now, pouring through the compluvium above and striking the surface of the impluvium pool. Ripples scatter the golden reflection across the walls, as though sunlight itself were alive, dancing in restless patterns. The faint smell of incense drifts from the Narration shrine, where a servant has just placed a fresh sprig of laurel and poured a few drops of wine onto the stone. The offering glistens briefly before sinking into distance, a quiet gesture to the gods of the household. In the triclinium, the dining room, the first meal of the day is being prepared. It is not a feast, but a modest gathering, meant to give strength for the hours ahead. You find a small table set with simple fare, a round loaf of coarse bread, its crust cracked from the oven, a bowl of olives, glossy and dark, a wedge of goat's cheese wrapped in cloth, and figs split open to reveal their ruby hearts. Beside these lies a clay cup filled with watered wine, the morning's first sip of refreshment. A young boy, perhaps the son of the house, enters quietly. His tunic is neatly tied at the waist, his sandals freshly strapped. He takes a piece of bread and a fig, eating slowly, his eyes wandering toward the doorway as though the world outside already calls to him. His mother follows, adjusting her stola as she steps into the room. Her voice is calm, warm, as she reminds him of the lessons awaiting him later. Letters to be practiced, verses to be recited, manners to be refined. At the far side of the room, two slaves work in silence. One pours fresh water into bronze basins for washing, while the other lays out small bowls of dates and nuts. Their movements are quiet but precise, every gesture owned by habit. They do not speak unless spoken to, but their presence is as constant as the walls themselves, woven into the rhythm of the household. The scent of the bread mixes with the sharper fragrance of olives and the faint tang of cheese. It is a simple meal, but it carries the fullness of a Roman morning, a reminder that life here is not measured only by grandeur, but by small, steady comforts. You sit, taking a piece of bread. The crust is hard at first, but the inside is soft, warm, filling your mouth with the taste of wheat and fire. The fig that follows is sweet, its seeds crunching faintly as you bite. The watered wine washes it all down gently, light and refreshing, carrying a hint of the vineyard where it was born. It is not extravagance, but it is enough. It is how Rome begins its day. After finishing your bread and fruit, you rise slowly from the table. The air in the triclinium holds the warmth of food and the faint sweetness of figs, but the rest of the house beckons. Morning is unfolding not only in the streets but within these walls, and each chamber of the domus has its own rhythm, its own voice. You step back into the atrium. The impluvium pool reflects the light more brightly now, and you notice how the household moves naturally around it. A servant girl kneels to polish the bronze fittings of a chest, her cloth moving in small circles until the metal gleams. Another sweeps gently near the pool, the straw bristles whispering across the mosaic floor, careful not to disturb the water. They work almost without sound, as though their efforts are part of the quiet music of the house. To one side, the tablinum opens wide, its broad doorway framing a view of the peristyle garden beyond. This space, once used as the study of the master of the house, now feels more like a passageway where morning light pours freely through. From here, you can see the garden columns, pale stone rising against a sky deepening into clear blue. Vines curl lazily upward, leaves catching the sun, while the faint fragrance of herbs drifts inward on the breeze. You walk slowly through the tablinum, your sandals tapping softly against the patterned floor. The walls are painted with panels of red and yellow, each bordered with delicate lines of black. Within the frames, small figures and animals dance, mythic creatures frozen in quiet scenes, faded yet still vibrant. It feels as though the walls themselves are alive with stories, watching silently as generations pass. Beyond, the peristyle garden stretches out in calm symmetry. Columns line its edges, their shafts cool and smooth beneath your fingers as you brush them lightly while walking. Between them lies the open garden, neat beds of herbs and flowers, small statues of gods, and a trickling fountain at the center. The water sparkles in the sunlight, its soft murmur blending with the distant sounds of the city. You pause here, breathing in deeply. The air is fresh with the scent of mint and rosemary, their leaves stirring in the breeze. Somewhere above, a bird calls, its voice high and clear, echoing faintly among the stone. The garden is small, enclosed, but within its boundaries it feels infinite, a world of calm held at the heart of the domus. At the edge of the garden you notice a young slave boy carrying a tray of folded linens. He moves quickly but carefully, his small hands gripping the bronze handles tightly. As he passes, he glances at you with wide eyes, offering the smallest of nods before disappearing into one of the side rooms. His presence is fleeting, but it leaves behind the quiet reminder of how many unseen lives keep this household alive. From another chamber comes the low murmur of conversation. Two older women, perhaps relatives or close friends of the family, sit upon low stools near the garden, their hands busy with weaving. Threads stretch across small wooden looms, their fingers moving steadily as they pass the shuttle back and forth. The soft click of wood and the rustle of thread add another layer to the morning's quiet symphony. Standing here, you realize that the domus is not silent, even when it seems so. It breathes with countless small motions: the sweep of a broom, the drip of a fountain, the murmur of voices, the whisper of sandals across stone. Together, they weave a fabric of life that is both fragile and enduring, private yet connected to the great city beyond its walls. From the peristyle garden, the sound of footsteps grows nearer. A tall figure appears in the doorway, the master of the house. His tunic is simple yet finely woven, belted neatly at the waist. His hair, dark and cut short, gleams faintly in the morning light. He walks with measured steps, as though the house itself moves in rhythm with him. Behind him comes the murmur of voices, softer but insistent. Two attendants follow, one carrying a wax tablet and stylus, the other holding a roll of parchment. They speak briefly with their master, heads bent together in low discussion about matters of business, trade, or perhaps the affairs of the city. Though the words are too low to catch, their tone carries the weight of decisions that shape the day ahead. Near the garden fountain, the mistress of the house appears, her stola flowing gracefully around her. The fabric is dyed in muted shades of green, pinned with bronze clasps at her shoulders. Her hair is arranged in careful braids, the work of a patient servant earlier that morning. In her hands she carries a small basket of flowers, which she sets near the household shrine, murmuring a quiet prayer as she lays them down. Her voice is low, steady, almost like a song, a gesture of devotion to the gods who guard the family. The young boy you saw earlier now stands beside her. He looks restless, his small body shifting from foot to foot, eyes darting between the fountain and the doorway that leads to the street. In his hand, he holds a wooden writing tablet, its surface dark and smooth, ready for the lessons of the day. His mother places a steadying hand on his shoulder, speaking to him softly, reminding him of patience, of discipline, of the importance of learning. A tutor soon arrives, his cloak draped neatly, a roll of scrolls under his arm. He greets the household with a polite nod, then turns his attention to the boy. The lessons will take place later, perhaps in a quiet corner of the garden or in a shaded room beyond. For now, the presence of teacher and student adds to the rhythm of the morning. One more thread in the fabric of Roman life. Elsewhere in the domus, more activity stirs. From the kitchen, the clang of bronze pots echoes softly. A servant kneels by the hearth, coaxing the embers into flame with careful breaths, the fire catching with a sharp crackle. The smell of grain boiling rises faintly, mixing with the sharper tang of herbs. Though the morning meal has already been shared, preparations for later dishes have already begun. The kitchen, hidden from the front rooms, hums with quiet energy. In another chamber, you glimpse a young woman arranging jewelry upon a small wooden chest. Bracelets of bronze and silver lie in neat rows, alongside pins carved from bone and ivory. She hums softly as she works, her voice rising and falling like the flutter of a bird. Each piece gleams in the growing light, ready to be chosen for wear later in the day. The domus feels alive now, every space filled with motion. Some actions are grand, the master discussing matters of trade, the mistress offering prayers, while others are small, almost invisible, a servant polishing a lamp, a child adjusting the strap of his sandal. Together, they create a harmony that feels timeless, as though the house itself has always moved to this rhythm and always will. In the quieter corners of the domus, life moves with another rhythm, the rhythm of labor. Here, the slaves of the household carry out the endless tasks that keep the home alive. Their presence is constant, though their voices are often hushed, their movements practiced to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. In the kitchen, the hum of activity has grown stronger. One slave kneels near the hearth, coaxing the flames higher, while another grinds grain in a heavy stone mill. The sound is steady and low, a grinding rhythm that fills the small room. The smell of toasting grain mingles with the sharper tang of herbs that another hand sprinkles into a pot. The kitchen is warm, smoky, alive with effort, though none of it is meant for show. It is labor carried out in the background, unseen but essential. Elsewhere, a girl sweeps the hallway, her broom leaving neat paths across the mosaic floor. She works with quiet precision, pausing only to adjust the folds of her tunic or to tuck loose strands of hair behind her ear. When she passes near the household shrine, she bows her head briefly, a gesture so ingrained it flows from her almost without thought. For her, the work and the devotion are one, the rhythm of service joined with the rhythm of faith. A boy, no older than 12, carries a jug of water across the peristyle garden. His bare feet slap softly against the stone, his arms straining under the weight of the clay vessel. When he reaches the fountain, he lowers it carefully, pouring the fresh water into the basin. The stream catches the light as it falls, sparkling briefly before merging with the pool. He pauses for a moment, wiping his brow with the back of his hand, before hurrying back inside for another task. In one of the storage rooms, two older slaves take inventory of the household goods. Scrolls of wax tablets are spread before them, tallying the grain, the wine, the oil. Their voices murmur softly as they count, their fingers moving steadily across the lines. The work is meticulous, almost invisible, but it ensures that the household runs smoothly, that nothing is wasted or forgotten. At the doorway of the domus, another slave stands watch. He is older, his face lined, his eyes steady. His task is simple yet vital, to monitor who enters and who leaves, to ensure that strangers do not wander in unbidden. He greets visitors with a nod, his voice firm but polite, carrying the weight of both hospitality and caution. You watch all this unfold, realizing that the house itself is like a living body. The master may be its head, the mistress its heart, but the slaves are its hands and feet, moving constantly, tirelessly, carrying out the tasks that give it life. Without them, the domus would falter. With them, it breathes steadily, a small world in harmony with the larger one beyond its walls. The morning advances, and with it the sense of quiet expectation that fills the domus. One by one, the members of the household prepare themselves for the day ahead. The air is no longer only that of bread and herbs. Now it holds the faint fragrance of oils, perfumes, and polished bronze. In one chamber, the mistress sits before a small wooden chest with a polished bronze mirror propped upon it. Her hair, dark and thick, is being braided carefully by a servant. The girl's fingers move with steady patience, weaving strand after strand into an elegant crown. Occasionally she dips her hand into a small bowl of scented oil, smoothing flyaway hairs before binding them into place with ivory pins. The mistress remains still, her gaze soft as she looks into the mirror, her lips moving faintly as though reciting a prayer or a quiet thought to herself. On a low table beside her lies a collection of ornaments. Bronze bracelets, silver rings, small earrings of glass beads in shades of green and blue. Each piece has its own weight, its own memory. She chooses a bracelet with deliberate care, sliding it onto her wrist with a slow, practiced motion. It gleams faintly in the morning light, catching the gold that filters through the open doorway. Elsewhere, the young boy is being dressed by another attendant. The straps of his sandals are tightened, his tunic adjusted until it falls in neat folds. A small leather satchel is placed over his shoulder, carrying wax tablets, a stylus, and perhaps a scroll or two for his studies. He squirms with impatience, his eyes flicking again and again toward the doorway, eager to join the life of the streets. Yet he stands still enough for the servant to finish, aware that obedience is expected even in moments of restless youth. The master of the house now enters the atrium once more. He carries himself with quiet authority, his steps firm, his tunic spotless. Over his shoulders is draped a toga, its folds arranged with careful precision by a slave who followed him into the room. The garment is heavy, cumbersome, but it marks his status unmistakably. As the last fold is adjusted, he breathes deeply, his gaze steady, ready for the business of the forum and the duties of the day. Near the Lararium shrine, the family gathers for a brief ritual. The mistress places a sprig of fresh herbs into the small niche, while the master pours a few drops of wine into a shallow dish. The boy, encouraged by a gentle nod, adds a crumb of bread. Their offerings are simple, but the gesture is full, a moment of reverence binding them together before they step into the larger world. The smoke of incense curls upward, faint and sweet, mingling with the light that streams through the compluvium above. Around them, the slaves pause briefly in their work. Some bow their heads in silence, others stand still, eyes lowered. For a heartbeat, the house is united in this single act of devotion. Masters, family, servants alike acknowledging the unseen guardians of the domus. When the prayer is complete, the motion resumes. The mistress adjusts her stola once more, the boy clutches his satchel tighter, and the master straightens the heavy folds of his toga. There's a sense of readiness now, as though the domus itself has prepared them, and the city waits just beyond its door. The house grows quieter now, but it is the stillness of anticipation, not of rest. Every detail has been seen to. The bread baked, the lamps polished, the shrine honored, the garments arranged. The domus itself feels as though it has taken a deep breath, ready to release its family into the waiting streets. The master moves first. He walks with measured steps toward the vestibulum, the narrow passage that leads to the outer door. The heavy folds of his toga sway with each stride, trailing softly against the mosaic floor. At his side, the tutor follows with the boy, their voices low as they speak of lessons, of letters and numbers that will fill the day. The mistress lingers for a moment longer in the atrium. She adjusts the clasp at her shoulder, then glances once more toward the Lararium. Her lips move in a final whisper of prayer, too soft to catch, but filled with a weight that only devotion carries. She straightens, drawing in the calm of the home around her, before stepping forward to join the others. The slaves take their positions with practiced ease. One opens the door, its bronze hinges creaking faintly. Another lifts a basket filled with linens to carry behind the mistress. A third remains near the shrine, tidying the space, ensuring that the morning's offering lingers in place for the household gods. Their movements are precise, efficient, the rhythm of countless mornings repeated and refined. Light spills into the vestibulum as the door swings wide. The street sounds rush in more clearly now, the roll of carts, the chatter of neighbors, the cry of a vendor announcing fresh figs. The boundary between private and public, between the contained life of the domus and the sprawling energy of Rome, lies open before you. The family steps outward. The master's sandals strike the cobblestones with firm authority. The boy follows quickly, his satchel bouncing against his side, his eyes bright with eagerness. The mistress moves with graceful composure, her stola flowing around her as she holds her head high. Behind them, attendants carry baskets and scrolls, their pace steady, their presence a quiet extension of the household's dignity. For a moment, you glance back into the domus. The atrium glows with morning light, the water of the impluvium shimmering softly, the shrine watching silently from its niche. It feels like a sanctuary, a world set apart. And yet, you sense that it exists in harmony with the city beyond, breathing with its rhythm, giving and receiving life each day. When you step across the threshold at last, the air changes. It is brighter, louder, more alive. The domus closes gently behind you, its door returning to its frame with a muffled thud. Before you stretches the great city itself, pulsing with movement, rich with voices, vast and unending. The morning within has ended. The morning beyond has only just begun. The street embraces you the moment you step away from the domus. It is not only a passage of stone, but a living artery, carrying the lifeblood of Rome through every step, every sound, every breath. The cobblestones stretch unevenly beneath your sandals, their surfaces polished smooth by countless feet and wheels. Shallow ruts run along them, carved by years of carts rolling in the same lines. The morning sun glints across the stones, each reflection caught in fleeting sparks, as if the ground itself were alive. The noise here is deeper than what you heard from inside the house. It is layered, complex, impossible to untangle. A mule brays as it strains against its harness. The iron-rimmed wheels of a cart grind and squeal as they roll forward. Somewhere nearby, a woman calls out the price of figs, her voice strong and steady, rising above the hum of conversation. The smells are just as vivid. Fresh bread drifts from a bakery, sweetened with honey. The salt of fish carried in baskets from the Tiber mingles with the sharper tang of garlic and onions. Beneath it all lies the ever-present scent of smoke, charcoal fires burning steadily in hidden hearths behind open doorways. Shops line the street, their shutters wide. One sells tunics of rough wool, dyed in muted reds and browns, hung neatly from pegs for all to see. Another displays clay amphorae, tall and narrow, their wax seals shining faintly in the sun. A cobbler sits outside his stall, leather stretched across his knee, tapping rhythmically with his awl as he repairs a strap. Children weave through the crowd with ease, their small feet quick and light. They dart between carts, laughing as they chase after a ball of cloth tied with string. A dog follows, tail wagging, snapping playfully at their heels. The laughter rises above the street's noise like bells, bright and unrestrained. As you walk farther, the street widens. Tall insulae rise on either side, their plaster walls painted in faded reds, yellows, and whites. Balconies jut outward, laundry hanging in uneven lines, fluttering gently in the breeze. From above, voices float down, greetings exchanged between neighbors, the cry of a mother calling her child back inside, the sharp clang of a clay pot being set upon a windowsill. Everywhere there is motion, yet none of it feels chaotic. It is a rhythm, a pattern, the steady heartbeat of a city that has been alive for centuries and will continue for centuries more. You find yourself moving with it, your steps blending into the endless tide of sandals, hooves, and wheels. Ahead, the street bends gently, and beyond it lies the heart of Rome, the Forum, where the voices of the city rise highest, where its power and spirit converge. The street narrows briefly before opening once more, and with each step you feel the pulse of the city strengthen. More people crowd the path now, their footsteps striking in overlapping rhythms across the stones. The hum of voices grows louder, like the rising swell of a river before it crests. Vendors line the way, their stalls propped with wooden poles and canvas awnings. One man arranges amphorae of wine in neat rows, the clay vessels sealed with pitch, their necks stamped with marks of origin. Another sits behind a table of cheeses, their rinds thick and fragrant, their surfaces dusted with herbs. The sharp, tangy scent mingles with the sweeter aroma of honeycomb laid out in small clay bowls, glistening golden in the light. Beside them, a woman displays bolts of cloth, rough wool, smooth linen, and a few rolls of fine silk that shimmer faintly in the morning sun. Her voice calls above the crowd, naming each fabric, announcing prices, praising their quality, with words honed to persuasion. Customers touch the cloth with careful fingers, weighing texture against cost, their brows furrowed in thought before a decision is made. Children dart through the crowd carrying baskets of bread, their voices high as they call out to advertise the freshness of their loaves. The crusts are golden, their smell warm and irresistible. A few coins change hands quickly. The bread passed into waiting arms before the children dash off again, eager to sell the next piece. Among the food and cloth sellers are others offering goods less tangible. A scribe sits beneath a shaded awning, his table covered with wax tablets and sheets of papyrus. For a small fee he will write letters for those who cannot. His stylus moves steadily, the sharp scratch of metal against wax audible even amid the crowd. Beside him, a fortune-teller shakes a small jar of pebbles, her eyes glinting as she promises glimpses of what lies ahead for those who dare to ask. The crowd thickens, the flow of people carrying you forward, as though on a tide. You catch glimpses of faces. A soldier in simple tunic and cloak, his sword at his side. A pair of merchants speaking quickly, their hands gesturing in sharp arcs. A group of women walking together, baskets balanced against their hips, laughter bright against the deeper hum. Above all this rises the architecture of Rome. Tall columns appear in the distance, their white stone glowing in the sunlight. The roof lines of great basilicas and temples crest above the houses, their silhouettes sharp against the sky. It is as if the city itself guides your steps, drawing you closer to its heart, pulling you toward the Forum where all voices converge. Already you can hear it, the sharper ring of authority in certain voices, louder and more commanding than the cries of vendors. They carry with them the weight of law and politics, echoing off the marble walls of the Forum ahead. The chatter of commerce and the cadence of oratory blend together, forming a chorus uniquely Roman. Practical, ambitious, relentless. You quicken your pace, drawn into the current, knowing that the true heart of the city waits only a few steps away. At last the street opens into a broad expanse, and you find yourself standing at the threshold of the Forum Romanum. The shift is immediate, like stepping from the flow of a river into the vastness of the sea. The space is immense, its floor paved with great slabs of stone that glow softly beneath the morning sun. Around it rise temples and basilicas, their columns towering, their white marble catching the light in blinding brilliance. Statues stand at intervals, carved figures of gods, emperors, and heroes frozen in eternal stillness, their gazes cast down upon the crowd. The noise here is not the casual hum of neighborhood streets. It is sharper, louder, layered with authority and urgency. Orators stand upon steps, their voices ringing out across the square. One man gestures with sweeping arms, his words rising in a cadence that commands attention, drawing listeners into a tight circle around him. Another speaks in measured tones, calm but firm, addressing matters of law, his audience nodding thoughtfully as he speaks. The air carries their words upward, bouncing them against the stone walls, so that even fragments of speech seem to linger long after the orator has paused. Around the edges of the forum, commerce continues. Merchants display goods on wooden tables, bronze lamps polished until they gleam, jars of imported spices that perfume the air with sharp and exotic scents, bolts of dyed cloth glowing in hues of crimson and purple. Coins clink steadily as hands exchange denarii, their silver catching the light as quickly as it disappears into purses. You step further into the square, the crowd pressing around you. Faces of every kind pass by, senators draped in togas edged with purple, their expressions stern, soldiers in armor, their steps firm, their eyes scanning steadily, common citizens in tunics, some animated with conversation, others silent as they listen to speeches. It is a gathering of all Rome, condensed into a single space, its voices weaving into one vast chorus. The scent here is equally complex. Incense drifts from the steps of a temple, its smoke curling upward into the sky. The sharp tang of fresh parchment mixes with the metallic smell of bronze coins exchanged in quick transactions. Nearby, the savory aroma of roasted meat drifts from a vendor who has set up a small brazier, skewers sizzling as he turns them slowly in the flame. At the far end, the Senate House rises, its steps broad, its doorway dark and imposing. Men gather there in clusters, their voices low, their gestures restrained but firm. Here, decisions are shaped, alliances forged, arguments carried into the chambers beyond. Though you cannot hear their words, you feel their gravity pressing outward, reminding you that this is the heart of empire. For a moment, you pause at the center of it all. The noise surrounds you, echoing from stone to sky. The sunlight gleams upon marble, upon bronze, upon the restless motion of people. Everywhere you look there is power. Power spoken, power displayed, power lived. And in this moment you understand that to stand in the forum is to stand at the core of Rome itself, where every voice, every trade, every decision ripples outward into the vastness of the empire. You wander slowly across the great square, letting your steps carry you from one scene to the next. Each corner of the forum has its own voice, its own rhythm, as though the space itself is a living mosaic of Roman life. To your right rises the Temple of Saturn, its tall columns etched with age. The stone glows pale gold in the morning light, its shadows stretching long across the steps. At the base, citizens kneel briefly, touching the stone with reverent hands before moving on. The faint scent of incense lingers, smoke drifting upward in lazy spirals, a reminder that even in the bustle of trade and politics, the gods are never forgotten. Farther along, the Temple of Vesta stands smaller, round and graceful. Its roof gleams with terracotta tiles, and from its interior comes the steady glow of the sacred fire. The Vestal virgins move quietly within, their white garments flowing as they tend to the eternal flame. The fire flickers steadily, its light falling upon the faces of those who gather near, whispering prayers for protection and fortune. The hush here is different from the noise of the square, softer, heavier, as though time itself bends in reverence to the flame. Beyond the temples, the Basilica Julia stretches wide, its interior cool and shaded. Here, merchants and officials meet beneath the high arches, their voices echoing as they negotiate contracts, settle disputes, and record transactions. The smell of parchment and ink fills the air, mingling with the metallic tang of coin as scribes tally amounts on their wax tablets. The scrape of styluses against wax forms a rhythm, steady and deliberate, punctuating the murmur of voices. You pause near a small gathering where a speaker addresses a cluster of citizens. His voice is strong, rising above the noise with practiced skill. He speaks of laws, of justice, of promises made by leaders. The crowd responds in murmurs, some nodding, others frowning, their faces reflecting hope, skepticism, or weary resignation. The orator's gestures are broad, his eyes burning with conviction, but it is the faces of the listeners that hold you, ordinary men and women, their lives tied invisibly to the decisions being spoken here. Not all voices in the forum belong to statesmen or merchants. From a shaded corner comes the cry of a beggar, his hands outstretched, his eyes hollow. A woman drops a coin into his palm without slowing her pace. Nearby, a street performer juggles brightly painted balls, his movements quick, his laughter loud. Children gather around him, their cheers rising each time he catches them in a perfect arc. Life here contains both gravity and levity, power and fragility, all existing side by side, without contradiction. As you move, you begin to notice the textures of the forum more closely. The marble beneath your feet is worn smooth by centuries of steps, yet it still gleams faintly where the sun strikes it. The air carries a weight of history, not abstract but tangible, pressed into every stone, every column, every echo. The voices around you weave together, prayer, trade, politics, laughter, forming a symphony that feels eternal. You realize that to walk through the forum is to walk through the soul of Rome itself. It is not only a place of stone and structure, but of breath and presence, a living embodiment of the empire's power and the daily lives that sustain it. You drift deeper into the square, where the forum's pulse is most alive. Here, the air is thick with voices, rising and falling in waves. Each cluster of people forms its own world. Merchants haggling, neighbors exchanging news, strangers debating politics. Yet all of it blends into one living chorus, bound together by the stones beneath your feet. Near the steps of the Basilica Aemilia, a group of traders argue over the price of imported grain. Their voices are sharp, their hands moving in quick gestures as coins clink loudly between them. One man raises his arms in frustration, his toga slipping from his shoulder, while another leans forward, his face flushed with determination. Passers-by slow to listen, some shaking their heads, others nodding in approval, as though this quarrel were as entertaining as any performance. Not far away, a woman balances a basket on her hip, filled with jars of olive oil. She speaks warmly to a man inspecting the jars, describing the quality of the oil, the richness of its flavor, the region from which it came. Her words flow smoothly, her tone confident, carrying the art of persuasion honed from countless mornings like this one. The man smiles, placing a coin in her hand, and she hands him the jar with practiced ease. Both walk away satisfied, another thread woven into the fabric of the day. At the edge of the square, a cluster of young men gather around a small table. Dice clatter across the wood, their laughter rising in bursts as coins exchange hands. The game is quick, full of sudden cries of triumph and groans of loss. A passerby warns them to be careful. Gambling is frowned upon, but the men only laugh louder, their voices ringing bright against the heavier tones of the forum. A boy weaves through the crowd with a tray of clay cups, each filled with watered wine. His voice is high and clear, calling out the price. Men pause in their discussions to take a cup, the coins falling into his small pouch as he darts away again, already searching for the next thirsty face. The wine itself is simple, but in the warmth of the day it tastes fresh, welcome, necessary. In a shaded corner, an old man sits with a basket of scrolls. He unrolls one carefully, his voice quivering as he reads aloud verses of poetry to a small circle gathered around him. The words carry rhythm, painting pictures of heroes, of love, of distant battles. The listeners lean closer, some closing their eyes as the lines wash over them. For a moment, the clamor of the forum fades, replaced by the quiet cadence of verse. Beyond them, a sudden cry erupts. Two men argue heatedly near the base of a statue, their voices sharp enough to draw attention. One accuses the other of dishonesty in a trade, while the other protests with equal fervor. Their words clash like swords, echoing off the stone until a passerby steps in, raising his hands to calm them. Slowly the tension dissolves, though the echo of their anger lingers like smoke in the air. Everywhere you turn, small dramas unfold. None will be remembered in stone inscriptions, yet each is part of the living story of Rome. The forum does not belong only to senators and orators. It belongs to these voices as well, to the traders, the children, the gamblers, the poets, the quarrelers. Together they create a portrait not of empire alone, but of humanity itself, alive in all its colors. The sun climbs higher, and the forum glows beneath its light. The marble of the temples shines almost white, dazzling to the eyes. Shadows shorten, pressing close to the bases of the columns, while the heat of the day begins to settle upon the square. The noise has not lessened. If anything, it has deepened. More voices crowd the air, more footsteps echo against the stone. New speakers mount the steps of temples, their words spilling outward in waves of argument and persuasion. Crowds gather and disperse, each leaving behind a faint echo, quickly replaced by another. You pause near the center of the square, letting it all wash over you. The smells are stronger now. Incense thicken the air, meat sizzling at a brazier, parchment and wax warmed by the sun. The mingling of scents is overwhelming and yet fitting, for here everything in Rome mingles, the sacred and the practical, the noble and the common, the eternal and the fleeting. A procession passes by, moving steadily through the forum. Priests in white robes carry small statues of the gods upon litters, their faces solemn. The crowd parts to let them pass, some bowing their heads, others crossing their arms in reverence. The sound of flutes accompanies them, thin and high, rising above the murmur of the square like threads of silver light. For a moment, the clamor softens, held still by the presence of the divine. Then, as the priests move on, the forum exhales and the noise returns. You lift your gaze toward the Senate House, its shadow falling dark against the bright pavement. You think of the decisions being shaped within its walls, choices that ripple outward across provinces and seas, touching lives you will never know. Here, in this square, the empire breathes not only through marble and bronze, but through the voices of its people, through the constant rhythm of their daily lives. As you step slowly toward the edge of the forum, the sounds grow fainter. The speeches blend into background murmurs. The cries of vendors soften. The clatter of carts fades into the distance. Yet you carry them with you. The weight of voices, the heat of sunlight, the scent of incense and bread and smoke. You realize that you have stood at the heart of Rome, not as a visitor alone, but as part of its living fabric, if only for a moment. Every stone beneath your feet, every echo in the air, every face in the crowd has left its mark upon you. When at last you turn down a narrower street, leaving the vast square behind, the Forum remains with you. It lingers in your ears, in your breath, in the rhythm of your steps. It is the core of an empire, the voice of a people, the eternal song of a city that will not sleep. Leaving the Forum behind, you follow the stream of people down a broad street. The sun is higher now, casting sharper shadows across the stone walls. The noise of the Forum fades into the background, replaced by the steadier rhythm of footsteps, voices, and the occasional call of vendors lining the way. Here you begin to notice the subtle dance of Roman etiquette. Two men greet one another with a clasp of the forearm, their hands firm, their eyes steady. Their words are brief, yet their posture conveys respect, recognition, and the unspoken acknowledgement of status. When a younger man passes an elder, he lowers his gaze slightly, his voice softening as he offers a polite salve. The elder nods in return, the gesture small but carrying weight, affirming the bond of custom and civility. A woman passes with her attendants, her stola flowing, her steps measured. Men step aside, allowing her space without question, their movements quick and instinctive. One lowers his head slightly, not in servitude but in acknowledgement of her dignity. The gesture is subtle, yet it speaks of the unwritten rules that govern every interaction in Rome. Even the children mirror these patterns. A boy greets his tutor with a bow of the head, his voice quiet as he offers respect before taking his place at the man's side. Another stands straight when addressed by a stranger, his small shoulders squaring, his tone careful though his eyes sparkle with youth. Etiquette here is not merely habit. It is the invisible thread that binds the vast city together, allowing thousands of lives to move in harmony. The rhythm of the street carries you onward. At the corner, a group of men speak in animated tones. Their voices rise, their gestures broad. But when a senator approaches in his toga edged with purple, they fall silent at once, stepping back to allow him passage. The senator acknowledges them with the smallest incline of his head before continuing, his pace unbroken. In that simple exchange, respect flows both ways. Deference from the many, recognition from the one. As you walk, you realize that the city is not held together by walls and stones alone. It is bound by manners, by the countless gestures of recognition and respect exchanged in every moment. Without them, the streets would be chaos. With them, even in noise and crowd, there is order. Ahead, the smell of warm water and oil drifts faintly on the air. The street curves, and you see before you the broad steps of a great building, its arches open, its walls gleaming in the sunlight. Here is another heart of Rome, the baths, where etiquette and leisure intertwine, where citizens gather not only to cleanse the body, but to renew the bonds of society itself. The steps of the bathhouse rise before you, broad and worn smooth by generations of feet. You climb slowly, each step echoing faintly against the marble walls. Above, the arches open wide, inviting you into the vast interior. From within comes the hum of voices, steady and constant, like the pulse of a great heart. Crossing the threshold, you enter the vestibulum, the entrance hall. The air is warm, touched with the faint scent of oil and incense. Light streams in from high windows, falling across polished floors of mosaic. Geometric patterns spread beneath your feet. Black and white tesserae forming waves, knots, and interwoven lines that seem to move as you walk across them. All around you, people gather. Citizens of every class mingle here, from wealthy merchants in finely draped togas to common laborers in simple tunics. Children dart between adults, their laughter ringing bright, while attendants carry bundles of towels and flasks of scented oil. The sound is layered. Greetings exchanged in measured tones, bursts of laughter as old friends meet, the deeper hum of discussion as men speak of business and politics, even before they enter the baths. At the far side of the hall, a desk is set up where slaves collect small fees. One man steps forward, offering a coin that clinks softly against bronze before being swept away into a box. In return, he is handed a small token, granting him passage within. The exchange is quick, efficient, one of countless performed each day. You notice how etiquette continues even here. Men greet one another with a clasp of hands or a nod of the head. When a senator passes, space is made without hesitation, though his toga is soon exchanged for the same simple garments as any other. Within these walls, status bends, not vanishes, but softens, for the baths are a place of shared humanity. Slaves wait nearby, holding baskets for their masters, ready to carry clothing and valuables. Their eyes are steady, their posture attentive, but their movements are nearly silent, practiced to blend into the background. Occasionally, one adjusts a sandal strap or smooths the folds of a toga before it is set aside, small acts of care woven into the rhythm of the place. From beyond the hall comes the faint echo of water, a steady drip, a distant splash, the soft murmur of fountains hidden deeper within. The sound draws you onward, a quiet reminder of the purpose of this great building. But even before reaching the pools, you understand that this is more than bathing. It is a gathering, a stage upon which Roman life performs itself in countless small interactions. A man waves to a friend across the hall, their voices rising in greeting. Another leans close to whisper news of the forum, his tone hushed but urgent. Laughter erupts from a small group sharing a jest, the sound carrying upward to the vaulted ceiling. The vestibule is alive, a place of beginnings, a place where the outside world is set aside and the shared ritual of the baths begins. From the vestibulum, a wide doorway leads you deeper. The sound of voices grows louder, echoing against the high ceiling. As you pass beneath the arch, the air grows warmer, touched by the faint humidity of nearby pools. This is the apoditerium, the changing room. Benches line the walls, polished smooth by years of use. Small niches and shelves are built into the stone, spaces where citizens place their clothing and sandals before entering the baths. Slaves move carefully among them, carrying baskets to hold valuables, their steps quick but precise, their eyes lowered in deference. The room is alive with motion. Men step out of their togas, folding them with care or handing them to attendants. Tunics are loosened, sandals unstrapped, belts unbuckled. The air is filled with the soft rustle of fabric, the faint scrape of leather, the occasional laugh as friends greet one another while disrobing. Here, the distinctions of status blur. The senator's toga, the merchant's fine cloak, the laborer's plain tunic, all are set aside, leaving only the common frame of the human body. You notice the etiquette of the baths is different from that of the streets. Deference still exists, but it softens. Men speak more freely, their gestures looser, their laughter easier. A senator converses with a craftsman, their voices equal in tone. A wealthy merchant greets a soldier, their clasp of hands firm and unembarrassed. The baths strip away many of the layers that separate, revealing the shared bond of citizenship beneath. The smell of oil fills the room, sharp and fragrant. Attendants carry small flasks of olive oil infused with herbs, offering them to their masters or applying them directly with careful hands. Some men rub the oil into their skin themselves, their movements brisk, preparing for the cleansing that awaits. Others rely on their slaves to spread it evenly, the glisten of the oil catching the light that streams down from high windows. A boy laughs as he splashes a friend with a handful of water drawn from a basin. Their tutor frowns but says nothing, allowing the brief moment of play before lessons resume. Nearby, two older men speak quietly of business, their conversation uninterrupted, even as they set aside their garments. In this space, daily concerns follow, yet they mingle with relaxation, creating a rhythm both practical and leisurely. You pause at one of the benches, your hand brushing the smooth wood. You feel the warmth left behind by countless others who sat here before you, who set aside their burdens to join in the ritual of the baths. It is not merely the act of removing clothes, it is the act of stepping into another world, one where the body and the spirit are renewed together. From deeper within comes the faint rush of water, louder now, mingled with the hum of voices. The caldarium, the hot room, awaits, and with it the next stage of the Roman day. From the apoditerium, an arched passage leads you deeper into the bath complex. The air grows heavier, warmer, each step carrying you closer to the heart of the thermae. A faint mist lingers in the corridor, curling upward from the heat ahead. Then, as you step through another doorway, the world of the caldarium surrounds you. The room is vast, its ceiling high and curved into a great dome. Small windows near the top let in thin shafts of light, each beam cutting through the mist in golden streaks. The air is thick with steam, warm and damp against your skin, carrying the sharp mineral scent of heated water. Every surface glistens. The marble benches, the tiled floors, the broad pool of steaming water that stretches across the center. Men sit along the benches, their bodies glistening with oil and sweat. Some lean back, eyes closed, their breathing slow and steady as the heat seeps into their bones. Others speak in low voices, their words softened by the heavy air. The room hums with quiet conversation, a steady murmur broken only by the occasional splash as someone lowers himself into the pool. You step closer, the warmth enveloping you fully now. The surface of the water ripples as men move within it, their forms blurred by steam. An attendant kneels at the edge, ladling hot water over a bather's shoulders, the stream glinting briefly before vanishing into mist. Nearby, another scrapes oil and sweat from a man's skin with a curved strigil, the bronze tool gleaming as it moves in steady arcs. The etiquette here is relaxed, yet it carries its own rules. Voices are kept low, laughter subdued, for the caldarium is a place of heat and renewal. Men speak not of politics in grand tones, but of smaller matters. Business arrangements, family news, idle gossip. Each word rises like vapor, drifting into the air before dissolving. The sound of dripping water echoes faintly from the walls. Drops gather on the dome above, falling in slow rhythm into the pool below. The splash blends with the sighs of bathers, the scrape of strigils, the soft ripple of water stirred by movement. Together, these sounds form a kind of music, slow and soothing, echoing endlessly within the stone chamber. You lower yourself onto a bench, feeling the heat press against your skin. It seeps deep into your muscles, loosening the stiffness of the morning, melting away the weight of the streets outside. Your breath slows, matching the rhythm of the room, each inhale heavy with warmth, each exhale releasing tension into the mist. Around you, Rome continues to live, not in the clamor of the forum or the noise of the streets, but in this quieter communion, citizens gathered equal beneath the steam, sharing heat, sharing words, sharing silence. Here the empire breathes not with shouts, but with sighs. From the heavy warmth of the caldarium, you follow another passage. The air shifts gradually. The steam thins, the heat lessens, and a sharper coolness begins to creep along your skin. The corridor opens into a chamber brighter than the last, its high arches filled with light that spills across the polished stone. This is the frigidarium, the cold room. At its center lies a wide pool, the water still and clear, its surface shining like glass beneath the sunbeams that stream through an open oculus above. The air here is crisp, touched with the faint mineral scent of cold stone. The contrast to the caldarium is immediate, a sudden clarity after the haze of steam. Men stand at the edges of the pool, some hesitating before stepping in. Their bodies glisten from the oil and sweat of the hot room, steam still rising faintly from their skin. With a quick breath, one plunges forward, the water breaking in a bright splash. The sound echoes sharply against the marble, followed by his gasp as the cold surrounds him. Others laugh softly at his reaction, before lowering themselves in turn, their faces tightening at the first touch, then relaxing as their bodies adjust. The water is clear enough to reflect the ceiling above, broken only by ripples from each new movement. Every splash sends small waves across the pool, carrying light in shimmering patterns against the stone. The echoes of water mingle with the low murmur of voices, creating a soundscape both sharp and soothing, a contrast to the muffled hum of the caldarium. You step closer, placing a hand against the stone edge. It is cool beneath your fingers, smooth and steady. As you lean down, you catch the scent of freshness rising from the pool. Not of herbs or oils, but of simple, clean water, drawn from the aqueducts that feed the city. The purity of it feels like a promise, an offering to the body and the spirit alike. A boy leaps into the water, his laughter high and unrestrained. For a moment, the solemnity of the chamber softens, broken by the simple joy of youth. Even the older men smile at his play, their stern expressions easing as they watch him swim clumsily across the pool. Here, etiquette bends once more. The baths allow for dignity, but also for release. You lower yourself into the water at last. The cold strikes instantly, a sharp embrace that steals your breath for a heartbeat. But then, as your body settles, the shock fades into renewal. Your skin tightens, your muscles wake, your mind clears as though washed of the heaviness of the hot room. Each movement sends ripples outward, spreading across the pool until they merge with those of others, blending into one rhythm. Around you, men speak more brightly now, their voices lifted by the freshness of the cold. They joke, they laugh, they trade words with more energy than before. The frigidarium is not only a place of cleansing, but of awakening, a chamber where the body shakes off both weariness and formality, where the spirit rises renewed. As you leave the water, droplets trail across your skin, gleaming in the light before falling to the stone floor. The air feels sharper now, each breath crisp, each sound clearer. The contrast has worked its spell. You are lighter, brighter, more alive than when you entered. From the chill of the frigidarium, you move once more through arched corridors. The air shifts again, neither hot nor cold now, but comfortable, touched with the faint fragrance of oil and herbs. This is the tepidarium, the warm room, a place of balance where the extremes fade and the body rests. Here, men recline upon marble benches, their forms draped loosely with towels. Some speak in low tones, their voices easy and unhurried, while others sit in silence, eyes half closed, letting the warmth ease the last traces of tension from their muscles. Slaves move quietly among them, carrying fresh flasks of oil, offering massages with steady, practiced hands. The scrape of strigils is softer here, less urgent, a finishing touch to the ritual of cleansing. The light is gentler, filtering through narrow windows, falling in pale bands across the floor. It catches the fine mist of oil in the air, turning it into a faint shimmer that lingers just long enough to glint before vanishing. The atmosphere is calmer than the caldarium or the frigidarium, a middle ground between fire and ice, between intensity and stillness. In one corner, two men discuss the events of the forum earlier that morning. Their voices are calm, their gestures measured, their disagreements softened by the tranquility of the place. Nearby, a group of friends share laughter over a story, their voices rising and falling in playful rhythm, filling the room with warmth beyond the heat of the air. The baths are not only for the body, but for fellowship, for the weaving of bonds that hold the city together. As time passes, men begin to rise from the benches. Some return to the apoditerium to dress, while others linger a while longer, savoring the last moments of leisure. Garments are reclaimed from shelves, folded once more across shoulders, belts tied, sandals strapped. The simple ritual of clothing marks the return from equality to hierarchy, from shared space back to the distinctions of rank and role. Yet even as the togas are arranged and the stolas straightened, the residue of the baths remains. There is a looseness in posture, a brightness in voices, a sense of renewal that clings to each person as they prepare to leave. The etiquette of the baths is not forgotten once outside. It lingers, softening interactions, carrying the ease of fellowship into the streets beyond. When at last you step back into the sunlight, the city greets you again. The noise of carts and vendors swells, the smells of bread and smoke return, the bustle of Rome flows around you once more. But within your skin, within your breath, within the memory of warmth and water, the baths remain. You feel lighter, clearer, your body renewed, your spirit steady. The etiquette of Rome, the rituals of respect and fellowship, have carried you not only through the streets and the forum, but now through the steam and stone of the thermae. It is more than cleansing, it is communion. And as you rejoin the city, you carry that communion with you, step by step, into the unfolding day. The city gathers itself into a current, and you let it carry you. From the broad street outside the baths, a steady flow of people moves in one direction, drawn by a common anticipation you can feel in the air like a gentle charge. Faces are bright with curiosity and routine alike. Some walk quickly, amused by the prospect of spectacle. Others stroll at an easier pace, talking in quiet tones as if discussing the weather. You follow, and the buildings begin to open, the streets widening between them. The light grows stronger on the stone, and the outline of arches appears ahead, faint at first, then undeniable. The amphitheater rises from the city like a cliff of pale rock, ringed with tiers of open arches stacked one above the next, each holding a framed piece of sky. It is not only a building, It is a horizon, a shape the eye cannot ignore, a silent promise that something will unfold within. As you draw nearer, the murmur of voices thickens. Vendors call from shaded stalls set up along the approach, their wares arranged in tidy rows that ripple in the breeze. Wreaths of leaves and flowers, strings of small bells that chime softly with each step. Trays of nuts warmed with honey, their fragrance sweet and comforting in the sun. A boy holds up earthen cups and water skins, offering a sip to those who want to refresh themselves before entering. The sound of coins is steady, the faint metal notes joining the larger hum like light catching on water. Families pass you, the edges of their garments brushing lightly against your arm. A father hoists a small child higher so the little one can see the arches better, pointing upward with patient delight. Two friends laugh under their breaths at a private joke, their eyes bright and their steps light. An older couple walks arm in arm, unhurried, as though they have made this walk many times before, and know that the day will reveal itself at just the right speed. Closer now, you notice the disciplined motion of attendants at the entrances. They stand beneath numbered arches, each arch marked to guide the stream of people along assigned paths. Some check small tokens and wooden tesserae that serve as passes, turning them once in the light before nodding the bearer onward. Others simply direct the flow with calm voices and outstretched hands, easing the gentle pressure of the crowd into a smooth and courteous rhythm. There is etiquette here, even in excitement. Men step aside without fuss to allow elders forward. A woman pauses to let a cluster of children move past, smiling as they go. Two strangers bump shoulders, and without a word offer each other a small tilt of the head before continuing. The city's manners have followed everyone here, softening the lines where impatience might otherwise rise. The walls of the amphitheater are cool to the touch where shadow lingers. You pass beneath one of the great arches, and the air changes as if a quiet door has swung inward. Sound shifts, gathering under stone, lifting toward the inner sky. The corridor is wide and high, its ceiling an elegant curve. Light spills in from lateral openings, falling in long, pale bands across the walkway. Your steps spread softly across the stone, joining the low drum of many feet. Along the passage, small kiosks offer simple comforts. Fresh water from a conduit that runs clear and constant. Olive oil in small flasks for those who prefer to ease their skin against the sun. Cloths and cushions for hire, folded in neat stacks and carried off under careful arms. A gentle bustle fills the space, purposeful but unhurried, the last preparation before the day's spectacle begins. In the half-shadow you glimpse a group of musicians testing their instruments. Aloi lift a thin, reedy note that hangs for a breath, then fades. A drum speaks once, deep and round, and the vibration hums in your chest like a friendly hand upon the heart. They do not perform yet. They only confirm that sound will travel where it needs to when the time is right. As you move along, the corridor opens briefly onto a view of the city beyond. Through a high arch you see rooftops stepping away toward the horizon, red tile and pale stone, the line of a distant hill softened by haze. The breeze slips in, cool and kind, carrying the far-off scent of the river and a hint of crushed grass from somewhere you cannot see. Then the corridor curves again, drawing you inward, inviting you to step deeper into the ring of stone. You pass a steward with a wax tablet and stylus, answering a quiet question from a visitor who cannot find his place. Shepherding is done with patience here. He explains the path with a few calm words and an open palm, tracing an invisible line through air, then nods the visitor on with a small smile. Nearby, a mother tightens the laces of her child's sandal, fingers working with gentle precision. The child looks up, reassured by a familiar touch, and the moment folds itself into the larger morning without disturbing its flow. Farther inside, the light brightens. Warmth gathers on the stone as if the sun has found its way through every arch and along every stair. The passage climbs in shallow steps, and you feel the faintest lifting in your chest, not from exertion, but from a quiet, growing anticipation. The hum becomes a presence, not loud but full, a steady living note carried on the breath of thousands. You pause at a balustrade where another arch opens into the arena's interior. It is only a glimpse, a portion framed by stone, but it is enough to understand the scale. Rows of seating sweep upward in precise curves, tier upon tier like ripples frozen into rock. Below, the sand lies smooth and pale, carefully raked, its surface unmarred, its silence complete for now. The space holds its breath. You feel it, and you breathe with it without meaning to, as if answering a quiet invitation neither urgent nor impatient, simply sure. A soft voice at your shoulder welcomes you, and you turn to a vendor balancing a tray of honeyed nuts and small pastries dusted with seeds. The aroma is warm, gentle, comforting. You take a small packet wrapped in thin paper and offer a coin. The paper is pleasantly rough against your fingertips, and the sweetness within seems to promise a friendly company through the hours ahead. The vendor nods, moves on, and the delicate clink of coins fades into the steady murmur of the corridor. You rejoin the flow and let it guide you upward. A faint draft moves down the stair, a whisper of air that carries the softest sound of rigging above. Somewhere, far up, the awning ropes of the velarium shift slightly as attendants test lines that will later cast wide veils of shade across the seats. You cannot see them from here, but the idea of their careful work pleases you. A cloak of canvas ready to draw itself over the crowd when the sun grows strong. At the top of the stair, the corridor widens into a landing, and another arch opens, wider than the rest. You step through, and the arena lies before you in full, round and bright like an eye opening to the day. The sand gleams softly. The seats fold around it in calm, embracing curves. Early arrivals settle with gentle rustles, laying cushions, speaking in low tones, pointing out familiar details that feel like tradition itself. Nothing has begun, and yet everything is beginning. You sit, your back eased by the stone's steady support, your view clear and kind to the eye. The morning breathes around you, patient and expectant. The city's great theater holds itself at a soft pause, the way a storyteller rests one hand on the edge of a page before the words turn. You taste a honeyed nut, and the sweetness blooms quietly. Below, attendants rake the sand one final time, their lines straight and unhurried. Somewhere within the amphitheater, a door bolt lifts with a gentle scrape, not loud enough to stir the crowd, only enough to remind the building that it remembers what comes next. You let your shoulders drop and your breath lengthen. The Colosseum waits without urgency. It has seen mornings like this before and will see them again. You are simply here now, one heartbeat within many, held by stone and light and the easy kindness of a day that knows exactly how to unfold. You walk slowly up another stair, and the architecture reveals itself in quiet layers. Every arch, every corridor, every stair is shaped with purpose. It is not chaos but design, a system that holds thousands of people, yet allows each to find a place. You notice how the crowd divides naturally. Senators and magistrates sit nearest the arena floor, their cushions laid neatly upon marble seats reserved by tradition and law. Their garments gleam, edged with purple or embroidered with gold. Slaves stand nearby to fan them gently, or to hold trays of water and fruit. The voices here are calm, deliberate, carrying the weight of men who expect their words to be heard. Above them sit the equestrians, wealthy merchants and landowners, their tunics and cloaks finer than most, their expressions full of both pride and relaxation. They lean toward one another in steady conversation, their words practical, full of trade and profit, yet softened by the comfort of leisure. The rustle of their garments forms a soft counterpoint to the deeper tones below. Higher still are the broad rows for citizens of ordinary rank. Men in simple tunics, their faces weathered by work, sit side by side with neighbors and friends. They carry small bundles of food, bread, cheese, olives, unwrapped with eager hands, shared easily across laps and smiles. The murmur of their voices is lighter, their laughter freer, filling the middle tiers with a warmth of fellowship. Above them, the highest seats stretch toward the open sky. Here gather women, foreigners, and the poorer citizens. Their garments are plainer, their bundles smaller, but their voices are no less bright. Children sit perched on knees, their eyes wide, pointing excitedly toward the arena floor below. The view from here is distant, yet no less precious, for the air itself carries the promise of spectacle, of belonging to something larger than oneself. Between the tiers, attendants move with careful grace. They guide visitors to empty seats, sweep away crumbs, pour water into waiting cups. Their sandals whisper across the stone, their presence constant but never intrusive. Even in the vastness there's order, an etiquette that flows through every arch, ensuring that thousands may sit together without discord. Above, the velarium stirs. Great sheets of canvas, pale against the blue sky, billow slightly as the wind shifts. Ropes creak, pulleys turn, sailors high above adjust lines with practiced precision. The canvas spreads like a vast sail, casting shade over the tiers below. Light filters through softly now, diffused into gold, wrapping the amphitheater in a glow that soothes the eye. The sound of the crowd is steady but not yet loud. It hums like a great instrument tuning itself, each voice a string, each laugh a note, blending together in expectation. You taste the sweetness of your honeyed nut, hear the faint clatter of a dropped cup 2 rows below, feel the breath of the wind carrying scents of oil, bread, and stone. For a moment, you close your eyes. The amphitheater becomes a living body around you, every corridor a vein, every stair a heartbeat, every voice a breath. When you open them again, the sand of the arena lies smooth and pale, waiting. It is still empty, but its silence has changed. It is no longer quiet for itself. It is quiet for you, for all of Rome, for the moment that is about to arrive. And in that pause, you understand why the Colosseum is more than stone. It is memory. It is anticipation. It is the shared breath of a people gathered to witness the stories that belong to them all. The hum of the amphitheater deepens, then softens, as if the building itself draws a long breath. Somewhere unseen, a horn sounds, low, resonant, steady. Its note rolls through the arches like thunder tamed into music, reaching every ear, quieting every voice. The crowd stills, thousands of bodies leaning forward as one. From an arched gate at the far end of the arena floor, attendants emerge. Their steps are measured, their garments plain, their arms burdened with objects that gleam in the sunlight. They cross the sand in calm procession, laying their burdens carefully upon a table set near the center. Baskets of incense, vessels of wine, small statues of the gods, carved from bronze and polished until they shine. The smoke rises first. A servant lights the incense, and white curls drift upward, twisting gently into the golden air. The scent spreads slowly, mingling with the sharper smell of sand and stone. It carries with it a sense of gravity, reminding all present that even in leisure, the gods are witnesses. Next comes the offering of wine. One of the attendants tips the vessel, and red liquid pours onto the sand, darkening it briefly before sinking in. The gesture is simple, but the crowd murmurs approval. A libation to honor the divine, to bless the games, to remind the empire that joy and duty are never far apart. The music begins softly, flutes and lyres, their notes weaving in delicate strands. Then drums join, their deep rhythm steady, carrying the sound across the tiers. It is not loud but full, filling the amphitheater with a pulse that seems to echo the heartbeat of Rome itself. The crowd sways gently with it, shoulders rising, heads nodding, lips curling into quiet smiles. When the procession ends, the attendants bow and withdraw, their footsteps light against the sand. The arena lies bare again, save for the faint smoke that lingers above, a thin veil drifting beneath the sky. The silence after their departure is not empty. It is a silence charged, alive, waiting for what comes next. From another gate, a group of performers enters. They are not gladiators, but dancers, acrobats, and musicians. Their tunics are brightly dyed, their movements fluid and playful. They leap and twirl across the sand, their bodies bending in impossible arcs, their limbs weaving patterns in the air. The crowd responds with laughter, with cheers, with applause that rolls upward like waves. Children clap their hands. Elders smile softly, their eyes reflecting memories of games long past. A troupe of musicians follows, their instruments gleaming, brass horns curved like crescents, flutes carved from bone, drums stretched with taut skins. They strike up a lively tune, faster now, carrying joy into every corner of the amphitheater. The sound rises high, touches the canvas of the velarium, and returns softened, a gentle echo of celebration. At one end of the arena, two men balance upon tall poles, their bodies swaying as they exchange juggling balls in midair. The crowd gasps, then laughs as one nearly slips, only to recover with a flourish. At the other end, a pair of trained animals, small, clever monkeys in tiny cloaks, scamper across a narrow beam, their antics drawing delighted cries from children and smiles from even the sternest faces. This is the opening. Not yet combat, not yet blood. It is lightness, laughter, a reminder that the games are many things: ritual, spectacle, release, and joy. The arena floor becomes a stage for play, a space where the city allows itself to breathe together in mirth before the weight of the day deepens. When the music softens at last, the performers bow deeply, their bodies gleaming with sweat, their faces bright with exertion. The crowd applauds, the sound rising in waves that crash gently against the stone and fade upward into sky. Then once more the sand lies still. The hush that follows is deeper than before, as though all of Rome leans closer, sensing the shift. The opening has passed. The true spectacle lies ahead. The hush lingers only a breath before the next sound rises. From deep beneath the arena, a heavy creak echoes upward, followed by the thud of hidden machinery. The wooden trapdoors in the sand begin to shift. A low murmur spreads through the crowd. thousands leaning forward, eyes bright with anticipation. The first gate opens with a slow groan. From the shadowed passage, a lion steps into the light. Its mane glows gold beneath the sun, each strand catching fire in the brightness. The great beast pauses, muscles taut, its head turning slowly as it surveys the vast ring of faces above. The crowd exhales as one, awe, thrill, a ripple of wonder moving tier by tier. Another gate opens. A panther emerges, sleek and dark, its body moving like liquid shadow across the sand. Its eyes flash green in the light, its paws silent as it circles. Then comes a bear, massive and slow, its growl rumbling like distant thunder. The sound travels through the amphitheater, deep and heavy, stirring the air itself. Trainers step forward, careful yet confident, their arms bearing long poles and whips. With measured gestures, they guide the animals towards staged displays. A lion leaps onto a raised platform, its roar breaking through the air like a blade of sound. The panther slinks low, then springs upward in a sudden bound that draws gasps and applause. The bear rises onto its hind legs, towering over its handler, before dropping back down with a force that makes the sand tremble. Children shout in excitement, their voices clear against the deeper tones of the crowd. Men laugh with exhilaration. Women cover their mouths in awe. Elders nod with a kind of solemn approval. The spectacle is not only in the animals themselves, but in the collective breath of the people, shared and magnified in the great bowl of stone. Soon the displays shift. Painted scenery is rolled in, wooden trees with leaves of bright cloth, painted backdrops of forests and hills. The arena transforms before your eyes into a wild landscape, an imitation of the distant provinces from which these beasts were brought. The illusion is simple, but under the sun, beneath the awnings, with the smell of animals thick in the air, it feels real enough. Small groups of hunters enter, armed with spears and nets. Their movements are swift and practiced, their bodies glistening with oil. They spread out across the sand, circling the animals in careful arcs. The lion growls, the panther hisses, the bear bellows once more. The hunters feint, retreat, advance again, their spears flashing briefly in the light. The combat is staged, not yet bloody, but the thrill is sharp. When a hunter casts his net wide and the panther slips free with a bound, the crowd erupts in gasps and laughter. When a spear strikes the sand near the bear's paws, the sound of its snarl silences thousands for a heartbeat. Every motion is a dance of tension, release, and applause. As the spectacle continues, more animals appear. Antelope leaping gracefully, birds released to wheel overhead in sudden bursts of color. A crane spreads its wings and lifts upward, its shadow gliding across the tiers. The crowd follows its arc with their eyes until it vanishes into the sky beyond the velarium. For a moment, all are silent, as if Rome itself had lifted on those wings. Then the music swells again. Horns, drums, flutes, and the arena returns to motion. The hunters bow, the animals are guided back through the gates, the scenery is rolled aside. The sand lies marked with prints, clawed and human alike, lines drawn into its surface like verses in a story now complete. The crowd roars approval. Children clap until their palms are red. Men shout praise to the handlers. Even the senators lean forward, nodding in satisfaction. The amphitheater vibrates with joy, with awe, with the shared memory of beasts and wonders. And as the noise begins to settle, a new anticipation stirs. The lighter spectacles have passed. What comes next will be heavier, sharper, more decisive. The arena floor, cleared once more, seems to hold its breath again. The arena floor has been cleared once more. The sand is raked smooth, its surface unbroken except for the faint tracks left by attendants as they withdraw. The hush deepens. Every seat seems to lean forward at once, as if the entire amphitheater has taken a single step closer. From the shadowed gate, the first gladiators emerge. They do not rush. They walk with deliberate steps, their movements measured, their forms gleaming in the sunlight. Helmets catch the light, polished bronze flashing like sudden fire. Shields curve broad and steady, their rims dark with use. Some carry short swords, others long spears, others nets and tridents. Each figure is distinct, their equipment marking the type of fighter they embody. The crowd erupts and cheers. Names are shouted, some familiar, carried from memory of past games. Others are new, their faces unknown, yet the sight of their armor alone is enough to stir excitement. Children point eagerly, men call out wagers, women lean forward, their eyes bright with curiosity. The air thickens with anticipation, with the mingled scent of sweat, oil, and warm stone. At first, the display is ritual. The gladiators circle, saluting the officials seated near the arena floor. They raise their weapons in formal gesture, their voices ringing out in practiced tones, acknowledging the honor of the combat to come. It is not yet battle, it is ceremony, a reminder that what unfolds here is as much tradition as spectacle. Then, at a signal from the steward, the mock bouts begin. Two men step forward, shields raised, swords lifted. Their movements are precise, almost graceful. Each strike and block a dance rehearsed through countless hours of training. The clash of metal rings sharp against the stone, echoing upward to the highest seats. The crowd roars with each blow, even knowing it is not yet real. Elsewhere, a pair of gladiators with nets and tridents face each other. One casts his net wide, the weighted edges spinning through the air in a glittering arc. The other sidesteps, the net falling empty, the crowd gasping at the near catch. The tridents flash, points gleaming, their movements fast and sure. Laughter bursts from a section of the crowd as the fighters pause to reset. Then cheers rise again as they resume. The spectacle builds. Pairs fight across the sand, shields slamming, spears thrusting, nets swirling. Some fall to one knee, only to rise again with dramatic flourish. Others press forward, forcing their opponents back until the clash ends in a stalemate, broken by the steward's raised hand. Each motion, though practiced, carries weight, drawing shouts, applause, cries of admiration. Above, the awnings stir as the wind shifts, sending ripples of shadow across the tiers. The sunlight glints on helmets, on blades, on sweat streaming down strong arms. The sound of combat, though not to the death, fills the amphitheater with a thrill unlike any before. When the final pair salutes and withdraws, the crowd bursts into applause that rolls like thunder. Voices rise in praise, in wagers spoken aloud, in chants of names both old and new. The amphitheater trembles with joy, with hunger for more. And beneath it all, a deeper silence waits. The people know this has only been the beginning. The stage combats, the practice bouts, the playful tension, they are preludes. The arena is cleared once more, the sand smoothed again. The gates stand closed, holding back what the crowd longs for next. For Rome has not gathered only for ritual, it has gathered for decision, for spectacle carried to its height. The air thickens as if even the stone of the amphitheater leans forward, waiting for the true games to begin. Part 5, the climax of the games. The gates groan once more, their heavy timbers straining as they swing open. A hush spreads across the tiers, sharp and sudden, the kind of silence that belongs only to expectation. From the shadowed passage, two gladiators emerge. Not in play, not in jest, but in solemn purpose. One is broad, carrying a rectangular shield that gleams in the sun, his short sword held low, steady as stone. The other is lithe, his trident poised, his net coiled in one hand like a serpent ready to strike. They walk to the center of the arena, the sand crunching beneath their feet, the air alive with the sharp scent of oil, sweat, and anticipation. They pause. Both raise their weapons and salute to the officials, to the crowd, to the gods. The amphitheater answers with a roar that rolls like thunder across the stone. Then, at a signal unseen, the combat begins. The trident thrusts forward, fast and precise. The sword meets it with a clang of steel, sparks flashing briefly in the sunlight. The net whirls wide, its weighted edges hissing through the air. The shield rises just in time, the net tangling harmlessly across its surface before sliding away. The crowd gasps, then cheers, their voices breaking into a chorus of awe. Step by step, strike by strike, the fighters weave their story upon the sand. The shield-bearer presses forward, his sword flashing in sharp arcs. The net fighter retreats, his movements fluid, circling, waiting, casting his net again and again. Each near catch draws shouts from the crowd, each narrow escape laughter and applause. The rhythm is swift, alive, full of tension. Then, in a moment sharp as lightning, the net finds its mark. It falls across the shield, tangling it, pulling it aside. The sword is trapped, the fighter forced to one knee. The crowd explodes in cries of excitement, thousands of voices rising at once. But the story does not end. With a sudden surge, the shield-bearer twists free, dragging the net aside. Rising with renewed strength, the sword flashes upward, not to kill, but to press the contest onward. The trident meets it, their weapons locking for a heartbeat before breaking apart. The combat continues, alive with skill, endurance, and the roar of Rome. At last, the steward's hand rises. The fighters pause, their chests heaving, their skin glistening with sweat and dust. They lower their weapons and bow deeply, first to each other, then to the crowd. The applause that follows is thunderous, rolling through the amphitheater like a wave that refuses to break. It is not victory or defeat the people celebrate, but the spectacle itself, the courage, the skill, the breathless dance upon the sand. Slowly, the noise begins to soften. Families gather their bundles. Men finish the last of their wine. Children still chatter with excitement, replaying the moments with bright eyes and waving hands. The seats empty tier by tier, the corridors filling once more with the hum of departing footsteps. The smell of dust, oil, and food lingers, mingling with the faint sweetness of incense that still drifts from the morning's rites. You rise with them, your body eased by the stone seat, your spirit stirred by the rhythm of the day. The Colosseum lies behind you as you step once more into the streets, its arches towering, its silence returning slowly as the crowd disperses. But the memory of its roar remains, carried in your breath, in your ears, in the pulse of your steps. Rome has shown you its games, its laughter, its awe, its spectacle. And though the sand has been smoothed once more, though the arena now rests in silence, the echo of its song follows you into the afternoon. A song of joy, of tension, of communion. It is not merely entertainment. It is Rome itself, alive in stone, in sweat, in voice. The gates groan once more, their heavy timbers straining as they swing open. A hush spreads across the tiers, sharp and sudden, the kind of silence that belongs only to expectation. From the shadowed passage, two gladiators emerge. Not in play, not in jest, but in solemn purpose. One is broad, carrying a rectangular shield that gleams in the sun, his short sword held low, steady as stone. The other is lithe, his trident poised, his net coiled in one hand like a serpent ready to strike. They walk to the center of the arena, the sand crunching beneath their feet, the air alive with the sharp scent of oil, sweat, and anticipation. They pause. Both raise their weapons in salute to the officials, to the crowd, to the gods. The amphitheater answers with a roar that rolls like thunder across the stone. Then, at a signal unseen, the combat begins. The trident thrusts forward, fast and precise. The sword meets it with a clang of steel, sparks flashing briefly in the sunlight. The net whirls wide, its weighted edges hissing through the air. The shield rises just in time, the net tangling harmlessly across its surface before sliding away. The crowd gasps, then cheers, their voices breaking into a chorus of awe. Step by step, strike by strike, the fighters weave their story upon the sand. The shield-bearer presses forward, his sword flashing in sharp arcs. The net fighter retreats, his movements fluid, circling, waiting, casting his net again and again. Each near catch draws shouts from the crowd, each narrow escape laughter and applause. The rhythm is swift, alive, full of tension. Then, in a moment sharp as lightning, the net finds its mark. It falls across the shield, tangling it, pulling it aside. The sword is trapped, the fighter forced to one knee. The crowd explodes in cries of excitement, thousands of voices rising at once. But the story does not end. With a sudden surge, the shield-bearer twists free, dragging the net aside, rising with renewed strength. The sword flashes upward, not to kill, but to press the contest onward. The trident meets it, their weapons locking for a heartbeat before breaking apart. The combat continues, alive with skill, endurance, and the roar of Rome. At last, the steward's hand rises. The fighters pause, their chests heaving, their skin glistening with sweat and dust. They lower their weapons and bow deeply, first to each other, then to the crowd. The applause that follows is thunderous, rolling through the amphitheater like a wave that refuses to break. It is not victory or defeat the people celebrate, but the spectacle itself. The courage, the skill, the breathless dance upon the sand. Slowly, the noise begins to soften. Families gather their bundles. Men finish the last of their wine. Children still chatter with excitement, replaying the moments with bright eyes and waving hands. The seats empty tier by tier, the corridors filling once more with the hum of departing footsteps. The smell of dust, oil, and food lingers, mingling with the faint sweetness of incense that still drifts from the morning's rites. You rise with them, your body eased by the stone seat, your spirit stirred by the rhythm of the day. The Colosseum lies behind you as you step once more into the streets, its arches towering, its silence returning slowly as the crowd disperses. But the memory of its roar remains, carried in your breath, in your ears, in the pulse of your steps. Rome has shown you its games, its laughter, its awe, its spectacle. And though the sand has been smoothed once more, though the arena now rests in silence, the echo of its song follows you into the afternoon, a song of joy, of tension, of communion. It is not merely entertainment. It is Rome itself, alive in stone, in sweat, in voice. The streets beyond the Colosseum are alive once more. But the rhythm has shifted. The roar of the crowd still lingers in the air, like the echo of waves that have broken and retreated. Yet life resumes its ordinary flow. Shadows lengthen across the cobblestones, the sun now leaning gently toward the west. The heat softens. The breeze carries with it the scent of food rising from countless kitchens and stalls. It is the hour when appetite awakens. You follow the current of people into a quieter street where small shops and taverns line the way. Their open doorways spill warm light onto the road, and the air is thick with the mingling of smells. Grilled fish, fresh bread, garlic roasted in oil, the sweetness of figs stewing in honey. A boy calls out the price of hot chickpea porridge. A woman behind him stirs a pot, the wooden ladle moving steadily as steam curls upward. You pause at one such place, a modest tavern with benches set beneath an awning of faded cloth. The wood is rough but steady, worn smooth by countless hands and meals. A servant brings you a tray of food with simple kindness, a round loaf of bread, warm from the oven, its crust cracked and fragrant, a small dish of lentils, rich with herbs, a slice of salted fish, its edges glistening, and a cup of wine diluted with water, cool and sharp on the tongue. The meal is plain, but each taste speaks clearly. The bread is dense yet soft, its warmth filling your hands before it fills your mouth. The lentils carry the earthy strength of the fields, lifted by the bite of garlic and the freshness of parsley. The fish is sharp with salt, but softened by the drizzle of oil poured over it just before serving. The wine, though thinned, leaves a faint fire in your chest, a reminder of the vineyard sun pressed into liquid form. Around you, others eat as well. Two workers, still dusted with sand from the amphitheater, laugh over bowls of beans. A woman with her child breaks her bread in careful pieces, offering the softer portions to the little one. An old man sips slowly from his cup, his eyes half closed as though tasting not only the wine but the memory of every meal before. The tavern hums with voices, not loud but steady. Stories of the games are retold, gestures mimicking the thrust of a trident or the leap of a lion. Laughter follows, then sighs, then the softer tones of contentment as food and wine settle into bodies weary from the day. The air is thick with the closeness of people, but it is a warmth more than a press, the kind that folds strangers briefly into fellowship. You lean back against the wooden bench, feeling its rough surface steady against your shoulders. The cup is cool in your hand, the bread firm in your palm, the scents of oil and herbs rising around you like invisible garlands. It is a simple meal, but in its simplicity lies comfort, the assurance that hunger has met its answer, that the day may ease itself gently toward evening. As the light softens further, you rise, leaving behind the chatter and the warmth of the tavern. The street glows in the last fire of the sun, its stones reflecting red and gold. Ahead, the sounds of a different world drift faintly. The pluck of lyres, the laughter of voices carried high on the air, the richer scents of roasted meats and sweet wine. It is the promise of another kind of meal, not of necessity but of display, a banquet, a feast, where food becomes theater, where appetite is matched not only with taste but with spectacle. The simple loaf and salted fish remain with you, warm in your memory, even as your steps carry you toward marble doorways and lamplight halls. Rome offers both, the meal of the people and the banquet of the privileged. And tonight, it seems, you are to witness the latter. From the modest tavern of the street, your path winds upward through quieter lanes. The air grows stiller, the houses taller, their walls painted in deeper colors, their doorways framed by marble. Torches are being lit now, their flames trembling in the dusk, casting warm halos that spill across the thresholds. Here, Rome gathers its wealth into silence and display. You arrive before a grand doorway where attendants wait in careful posture. They bow slightly as you enter, their gestures precise, their voices hushed. Beyond them, the atrium glows with lamplight. Oil lamps hang from bronze chains, their flames mirrored in the polished surface of the impluvium pool. Shadows ripple gently against the walls painted with scenes of gods and heroes. The air carries the scent of preparation. Roasted meats, herbs crushed into oil, honey warming in clay pots. The aromas drift through the corridors like soft hands, guiding you forward. From a side room comes the clatter of bronze trays, the shuffle of sandals, the low voices of slaves moving quickly yet silently. At the threshold of the triclinium, you pause. The room is wide, its floor set with mosaics that shimmer under the lamps. Geometric patterns flow outward like ripples on water, framing the center space where 3 couches stand in a horseshoe around a low table. Each couch is draped with fine cloth, cushions arranged with care, their colors rich, crimson, deep blue, gold thread glinting in the firelight. The table gleams with polished wood, already bearing the first offerings. Baskets of bread shaped in round loaves, bowls of olives glistening with oil, small dishes of cheese, figs, and almonds. Pitchers of watered wine stand ready, their clay cool to the touch, their rims darkened with condensation. Slaves move steadily about, arranging platters, adjusting cushions, laying fresh garlands of flowers across the edges of the couches. Their motions are swift but unhurried, the rhythm of those who have performed this ritual countless times. Their eyes are attentive, watching for the smallest imperfection to correct before the guests arrive. One by one, the guests begin to enter. Men of status in finely dyed tunics, their cloaks pinned with bronze brooches. Women draped in stolas that shimmer in lamplight, their hair braided and pinned with ivory combs. Their voices rise in greeting, soft laughter mixing with the faint rustle of cloth as they take their places upon the couches. Each settles with practiced ease, leaning on one elbow, their free hand gesturing as they exchange pleasantries. The etiquette of the feast is clear, though unspoken. Guests greet the host with measured warmth, offering blessings upon his house, his fortune, his hospitality. He replies with equal courtesy, his words smooth, his gestures wide, his smile constant. The atmosphere grows with each arrival, the triclinium filling not only with bodies, but with anticipation, with the hum of expectation before the feast truly begins. Music drifts in from an adjoining chamber, the soft pluck of a lyre, the breathy call of a flute. The notes hover in the air like threads of gold, weaving themselves into the scent of roasted lamb now carried in by slaves. The sound does not command attention. It settles around the guests like another layer of comfort, a reminder that leisure has begun. You take your place among them, the couch yielding gently beneath you, the lamp glow warm upon your hands. Before you lies bread and cheese, fruit and wine, the first taste of what will become a long evening of abundance. The triclinium waits, dressed and glowing, ready to reveal its pleasures in patient sequence. The room settles into its rhythm as the last guests take their places. The couches curve gently around the table, each man and woman leaning into the ease of posture that marks a Roman banquet. One elbow rests upon the cushions, the other hand free to lift food or gesture as conversation flows. The low table gleams with its first offerings, and the lamps flicker softly, turning every gesture into a dance of light and shadow. A servant enters with the first course. Trays of olives, green and black, glistening in pools of oil. Small dishes of cheese, sharp and crumbly, perfumed with herbs. Bowls of figs sliced open, their flesh glowing ruby in the lamplight. Almonds, walnuts, and dates lie in neat heaps, their shells cracked, their sweetness waiting. The platters are set gently upon the table, the clink of bronze and clay softened by practiced hands. The host raises his cup, filled with watered wine. He offers a brief invocation to the gods, thanking them for abundance, for friendship, for the evening itself. The guests raise their cups in turn, their voices joining in a low murmur of assent. The first sip is slow, deliberate, the taste bright and sharp, awakening the tongue. Then conversation begins. At first, the talk is light. One guest recalls a story from the games earlier in the day, miming the leap of a lion or the thrust of a gladiator's trident. Laughter rises, soft and genuine, rolling across the room like a wave that leaves comfort in its wake. Another speaks of trade, of ships arriving in the harbor, of spices carried from distant lands. Heads nod, questions are asked, voices overlap, weaving a tapestry of sound as rich as the food upon the table. The etiquette of the feast is subtle, yet constant. Guests wait as platters are passed, offering food to those beside them before taking for themselves. They speak in turn, their interruptions gentle, their tones warm. When a servant approaches with a pitcher of wine, the guest sets down his cup and lifts his hand in quiet acknowledgement, the exchange brief, silent, efficient. Even in luxury, courtesy binds the room together, ensuring harmony amid abundance. The scents deepen. Roasted herbs drift in from the kitchen, mingled with the sweetness of honey warming over fire. The air grows thicker, richer, pressing gently upon the senses, yet softened by the coolness of wine. Every breath carries both promise and comfort, the anticipation of courses still to come. Music continues softly in the background. The lyre plucks a steady rhythm, the flute glides above it, the two weaving together like water and wind. The sound fills the pauses in conversation, smoothing them so they feel deliberate, not empty. It is not performance but presence, a constant thread tying the evening into one seamless whole. A platter of small sausages arrives, spiced with pepper and fennel, their skins browned and glistening. They are offered in slices, each bite rich and sharp, sending warmth through the chest. Another dish follows, eggs boiled and halved, their yolks bright, their edges sprinkled with herbs. Guests sample, nodding in approval, the flavors spoken of with as much interest as the day's news. And so the banquet begins, not with heaviness, but with brightness. The table offers its hand in small gestures first, each taste a step deeper into the evening. Voices grow warmer, laughter steadier, smiles broader. The triclinium hums with life, its glow wrapping around every guest, every cup, every platter. You lean back against the cushions, bread in one hand, wine in the other. The room breathes with you, a shared breath, steady and calm. The feast has only begun, yet already it feels eternal. A circle of light and fellowship unfolding in measured time. The triclinium glows brighter now, the lamps trimmed and fed with fresh oil. Their flames dance in steady rhythm, casting warm light upon the mosaic floor, upon the faces of the guests, upon the polished surfaces of the table where anticipation gathers. The first courses have softened hunger, and now the air thickens with the scent of the meal's heart. From the kitchen, the procession begins. Slaves enter bearing great platters, their arms steady despite the weight. One carries a whole roasted lamb, its skin golden, glistening with fat, sprigs of rosemary tucked into the folds. The aroma fills the room at once, sharp, savory, rich enough to draw sighs from the guests before the platter is even set down. Another follows with a great fish, its body gleaming silver beneath a drizzle of oil, its surface sprinkled with herbs, its mouth stuffed with figs. The scent of the sea lingers in it still, mingled now with the sweetness of fruit and the bite of pepper scattered across its scales. Beside it comes a dish of game birds, quail roasted until their skin crackles, laid out upon beds of leaves, their juices pooling into fragrant sauce. The slaves move with precision, placing the dishes upon the table in balanced order. Knives gleam as the meats are carved, their slices arranged neatly upon smaller plates. The sound of steel against bone is quick, efficient, softened by the constant hum of voices rising in approval. Wine is poured more freely now. The cups are filled not only with watered drink, but with richer, darker vintages brought out for this part of the feast. The taste is deep, full of the sun and earth of distant vineyards, leaving warmth that lingers long after the swallow. Guests raise their cups higher, their voices carrying praise to the host, their laughter brighter, their gestures broader. Entertainment joins the table. From a side doorway, a group of musicians enters, their instruments already alive with sound. The lyres pluck sharp and clear, the flutes lift in winding melodies, the drums beat with a low pulse that seems to match the rhythm of the guests' hearts. The music is not intrusive. It flows around the meal like another course, seasoning the air with joy. At the far side of the room, a young slave recites verses of poetry. His voice is high but steady, carrying lines of love and triumph that draw soft murmurs of appreciation. A few guests close their eyes, letting the words wash over them, tasting them as they taste the wine, savoring each syllable. Others speak among themselves, their voices blending with the music. One guest leans close to share a story of trade, of ships that carried cinnamon and pepper from beyond the seas. Another recalls a memory of youth, of journeys taken across distant provinces. Laughter rises, then fades into softer tones of reflection. The banquet is not only food, it is memory, it is connection, it is the weaving of many lives into one evening. The dishes continue to arrive, platters of pork glazed with honey, their sweetness cutting the richness of the meat. Bowls of beans stewed with onions and herbs, earthy and grounding. Cabbages dressed in vinegar and oil, their sharpness refreshing against the heavier courses. Each plate is a new layer, a new rhythm, adding to the fullness of the night. The table shines now, a mosaic of food and drink, light and shadow, voices and song. The triclinium hums not with hunger, but with satisfaction, not with silence, but with harmony. It is the heart of Roman abundance, beating steady and strong in the glow of lamps and laughter. The heat of the main courses fades slowly, leaving behind warmth in the body and ease in the spirit. The table, once heavy with roasted meats and rich sauces, now shifts to lighter offerings. Slaves move quietly, clearing platters, refreshing cups, wiping away crumbs with practiced grace. The air feels calmer, but it is the calm of fulfillment, not of ending. New scents rise, softer but no less tempting. A tray of figs appears first, plump and ripe, their skins split to reveal crimson interiors glistening with honey. They are arranged in neat circles, sprinkled with crushed nuts that shine in the lamplight. Beside them, bowls of dates stuffed with almonds, their sweetness sharpened by a touch of salt. Small cakes follow, baked with cheese and drizzled with honey, their tops browned to a gentle crust. The wine shifts as well. No longer the deep, heavy vintages of the main course, but sweeter blends. Muscat, raisin wine, syrups infused with herbs. They pour golden into cups, catching fire in the lamplight, their flavor soft and lingering, more a caress than a flame. Guests sip slowly, the sweetness settling on their tongues, their voices mellowing into a lower hum. Entertainment brightens. Two young girls enter carrying small hand drums, their rhythms quick and playful. They move lightly around the couches, their feet quick against the mosaic floor, their laughter spilling free. The crowd claps in time, smiles broadening, voices rising in encouragement. A boy follows with a trained dove perched on his hand, releasing it into the room. The bird flutters upward, circles once beneath the ceiling, then lands again, drawing applause from every corner. Yet amid the laughter, conversation deepens. One guest begins to speak of philosophy, of the nature of fortune, of the way life turns like the seasons. His voice is measured, his gestures slow, his words carried on the sweetness of wine. Another responds, recalling lines from a poet, words of fate and virtue, recited softly as though to himself. The others listen, nodding, their eyes thoughtful. Even in leisure, Rome finds room for reflection, for the play of ideas alongside the play of food and music. The host listens as well, his smile steady, his eyes bright. He answers not with dominance but with courtesy, guiding the flow of words as carefully as the slaves guide the flow of wine. The banquet is his gift, but the fellowship is everyone's. This balance, this harmony, is the true measure of the night. The sweetness of figs lingers on your tongue, the warmth of honeyed wine rests in your chest. The lamps glow softer now, their flames trimmed lower, their light more golden than white. The air is thick with fragrance, honey, fruit, oil, smoke, yet it does not press, it folds, it cradles. The triclinium feels less like a room and more like a world, sealed gently against the darkness beyond. Voices fade to murmurs, then rise again in laughter, then soften once more. The music hums quietly, the lyre plucking slow chords now, as if echoing the heartbeat of the evening. The feast has reached its height, and yet it does not rush toward its end. It lingers, like the taste of honey on the tongue, patient and unhurried. The feast slows at last. The bowls of fruit are nearly empty, their skins and pits resting quietly at the edges of plates. The last crumbs of honeyed cakes cling to fingers, sweet even in their absence. Wine remains in cups, but it is sipped now in small draughts, no longer in eager gulps. The triclinium breathes like a body grown drowsy, heavy with warmth, content to rest in its fullness. Slaves move softly across the room, their steps quieter than before. They collect platters, stack cups, refill lamps with oil. Their movements are unhurried, as if even their duties bend to the slower rhythm of the night. One adjusts the cushions of a couch where a guest has leaned too far, another wipes a spill of wine with a cloth perfumed faintly with rosemary. The room is kept in order, but without breaking its calm. The conversation softened too. Voices no longer rise in laughter, but settle into murmurs, steady and thoughtful. A man tells a quiet story from his youth, the words flowing slowly, carrying more memory than excitement. Another hums a line from a song, half forgotten, and those nearby smile, filling the gaps with their own recollection. There is no need for spectacle now. The evening has woven itself into intimacy. At the host's signal, music drifts back in, not bright or playful, but gentle. The lyre's strings touched lightly, the flute offering notes like falling water. The sound eases the room further, carrying it toward stillness. Guests lean back, their eyes softened by wine and contentment, their gestures loose, their smiles unforced. The banquet has given all it promised, and now it rests in its own satisfaction. Gradually, guests begin to rise. They thank the host with warm words, bowing slightly as they leave the couches. He replies with measured courtesy, his voice calm, his gratitude genuine. One by one, the figures depart, their sandals whispering against the mosaic floor, their cloaks gathered, their laughter fading into the corridors beyond. The triclinium empties, its glow remaining, but its sound growing faint. You linger a moment longer. The lamps flicker, their flames lower now, their oil nearly spent. The table lies bare except for a few scattered almonds, a stain of wine, a single fig left untouched. The scent of roasted lamb still clings faintly to the air, softened now by the sweetness of honey and smoke. The couches bear the imprint of bodies, the warmth of fellowship still folded into their cushions. When you rise at last, the silence greets you like an old friend. You pass once more through the atrium, its pool reflecting the faint shimmer of torchlight. The doorway opens onto the night, where the street glows in lamplight and the stars shine above. Steady and bright, Rome sleeps and wakes in equal measure. Taverns still alive with song, doorways quiet with rest. You step into that balance, carrying with you the fullness of the evening. The banquet is finished, but its echo remains. It lingers in your breath, in the weight of wine upon your tongue, in the memory of laughter, in the warmth of shared bread. It is not only food you carry, but fellowship, the quiet certainty that to eat together is to live together. And as you walk into the Roman night, the glow of lamps fading behind you, the city folds you once more into its endless, patient rhythm. Dawn returns to Rome with a gentleness that feels ceremonial in itself. The first light lays a pale ribbon across the rooftops. Chimneys stand like quiet markers against the sky. From the street below rises a thin perfume of oil lamps being trimmed, of bread beginning to bake, of water splashed across thresholds to cool the dust. You walk toward a hill where a great temple watches the city. The climb is steady and calm. Stone steps hold the memory of many feet. As you ascend, the streets recede into a soft murmur. Only the low call of a dove and the brush of morning air remain close. At the top, columns appear one by one. They rise from the platform like trees from polished ground. Light gathers on their flutes and in their shadows. Bronze doors rest closed, dark and smooth, reflecting the first glints of sun like small fires. A portico spreads its shade before you, cool and still, as if it had stored the night and now offers it back, carefully measured. People arrive in twos and threes. They speak in low voices. A woman carries a basket with a folded cloth on top. Beneath the cloth lie figs, small cakes of honey and flour, and a sprig of laurel. An old man climbs slowly, one hand on the rail, the other holding a little cup for wine. Two children follow a mother. Their sandals tap softly, their eyes wide, their fingers threaded together. Priests appear from within, robed in white with a narrow purple edging. One carries a small bronze bull. Another holds a censer on a chain. Smoke wakes gently from its mouth, white and blue at once, winding into the mild air. The scent is cool and sweet. It lifts your breath, clears your head, and seems to unfasten each tight thread of the night that remains. A flute begins. The note is thin and clear. It does not demand. It beckons. The melody walks ahead like a light foot on still water. You feel your own steps slow to match its pace. At the foot of the steps, a basin of clean water rests on a stand. The surface is flat as glass. Visitors wet their fingers and touch their brows. The water is cold, and it wakes the skin with a kindness that feels like a promise. It is not a loud beginning. It is a soft one. You repeat the gesture and feel present in a way that is simple and complete. Offerings are arranged in quiet order. Baskets are set upon a low table. The priest bids each person forward with a small tilt of his hand. There is no rush. Names are spoken in a murmur. Thanks are given as softly as breath. A woman lays down a cake in the laurel. Her lips move. You see no strain in her face. Only steadiness, as if she has brought the same gift many times and found it always received. The bronze doors open with a slow, careful sound. Cool darkness lies beyond. And inside that cool is a second light. It is the kind that comes from lamps alone and follows stone more than air. You step across the threshold and feel the floor change underfoot. It is smoother, slightly cooler, a ground that has absorbed years of footsteps until those footsteps learn to walk with it. The inner space is high enough that your breath grows longer without thinking. Columns stand inward like quiet guardians. Between them, a statue stands tall above the altar. It does not need to glitter. The calm of its face is enough. Its gaze is not fierce. It is steady, as if it sees a horizon you cannot see and asks only that you stand without haste. A priest lifts the censer again. Smoke rises in slow threads and hangs like pale silk before drifting up the shaft of light that finds its way down from a small opening high above. Another priest pours a libation. Wine darkens the edge of a shallow dish, then slips over, leaving a stain on the stone like a thought pressed into memory. The sound is a hush more than a splash. It passes and does not disturb the air. Words are spoken. They are formal, but they are not hard. Gratitude first, then hope, then a simple request for a day that keeps its balance. The flute answers in short phrases. The melody is patient. It is almost a hum brought into shape. You notice the small things, the curve of a lamp handle warmed by a hand, the trace of ash on a priest's sleeve where the censer brushed him, the way a child's head rests against a mother's arm during the prayer, the child quiet without being told. The way the oldest visitor breathes with the words as if they had been a part of his lungs for so long that breath and prayer learn to move as one. There is a moment for reading signs. An augur lifts his face to the square of sky and studies the air. It is calm, and birds cross at a gentle angle. Feathers flash and fold. He lowers his gaze with no drama. A nod is enough. The day has made no demand beyond what the city already knows how to give. Not all offerings are the same. One man brings grain. He lets it fall in a small bright rain into a bowl of bronze. The sound is faint. It speaks of fields and steady hands and a summer that did not fail. Another brings a jar of oil. A few drops gild the surface of water in a second bowl. Light catches the gold and then releases it. There is talk of sacrifice at some feasts, but not here this morning. The rite remains gentle. The altar receives only sweets and grain, oil and wine. No loud tears rise. No iron glints as an end. Only the soft commerce of gifts that return as breath and calm. When the prayers are finished, the doors are left open. People step back into the portico but do not hurry away. They stand in the shade and speak in tones that feel like the last light of dawn. A priest comes near with a small bowl and touches a thumb, lightly, to one forehead after another. It is a mark of blessing made not with pigment, but with the cool memory of the basin. The flute ends without a flourish. The final note does not fall. It settles. Silence holds it kindly and then folds it away. Outside, the city has grown a little louder, but only a little. Carts begin to move. Vendors call the first prices of the day. Their voices come to the hill, soft as if the air itself is still walking in from sleep. You remain on the steps a while. From here, the streets look like lines drawn in a patient hand. Roof tiles glow with a steady warmth. Smoke rises from a baker's oven and writes a single phrase that the wind reads and then forgets. The temple behind you breathes as a house that has always known how. It holds the city without grasping it. It blesses without insisting. When you descend the steps, your feet find a slower rhythm. Nothing in your body hurries. The scents of incense and morning oil linger faintly on your skin. You carry them the way you carry a quiet song remembered without effort. The city meets you at the foot of the hill with bread, with water, with the ordinary beauty of people beginning their day. The ritual has not ended. It has changed its clothing and gone with you into the street. You turn once more to look back. Columns hold their pale light. The bronze doors rest open. A child climbs the first step and pauses as if listening to the stone. You do not know what the stone says. You know only that you understand it. It asks nothing more than this: walk gently, keep balance, offer thanks. You step into the lane and breathe. The air is clear. The day feels washed. The city moves, and within it so do you, quietly aligned with its oldest music. The streets narrow again as you turn from the Temple Hill into quieter lanes. Here, houses line the way with walls of painted plaster, red and ochre, their doors framed in simple stone. Behind each doorway lies a smaller world, one that holds its own rights, apart from the city's larger rhythm. You step inside such a house, welcomed by the cool dimness of its atrium. The floor gleams with mosaic, small tesserae forming patterns of waves and knots. In the center, the impluvium holds water from the last rain, its surface smooth and reflecting a square of sky. The air smells faintly of ash and bread, of oil lamps and the wool garments hung carefully on pegs along the wall. Against one corner stands a small shrine, the Narration. It is not tall, only a little niche in the wall, but it glows with color. Painted figures of the household spirits stand on either side, their forms outlined in red and black. A tiny altar juts forward, holding small cups, a lamp, and a bowl that carries a few dried flowers from yesterday's offering. The family gathers here as morning settles fully. The father lifts a small dish of grain, the mother pours a few drops of wine into a shallow cup. Children stand close, their eyes lifted toward the painted figures, their hands folded before them. The house slave waits nearby, holding a sprig of laurel and a little jar of oil. No one speaks loudly. The voices here are as soft as in the great temple, though the space is smaller and warmer. The ritual is simple. The father sprinkles grain into the fire, where it hisses softly and vanishes into smoke. The mother tips wine onto the ground of the altar, the red stain spreading briefly before darkening into stillness. A lamp is lit, its flame steady, its light casting gentle gold over the painted spirits. The children touch the laurel one by one and lift it to their brows, the gesture light and unforced. There is no priest here. The family itself performs the rite. The household gods are not distant like Jupiter on his high throne or Neptune in his sea. They are near. They are protectors of the threshold, of the table, of the hearth where bread is baked and meals are shared. Their blessing is not for empire, but for the ordinary, for safety in the street, for warmth in the winter, for bread to rise as it should. After the offering, the father murmurs a prayer. He asks not for triumph or conquest, but for balance. Health for the family, peace among neighbors, a day without misfortune. His words are plain, but their simplicity gives them strength. The children watch his lips and whisper the last lines with him, their voices small but steady. The mother adjusts the lamp, straightening its wick. The flame steadies, its light drawing a soft sheen on the painted figures. The family stands in silence a moment longer, then steps back. The shrine remains glowing in the corner, a quiet sentinel that will burn through the day. The atrium fills again with ordinary life. The father prepares to leave for the forum, adjusting his cloak. The mother directs the servants toward the kitchen. Children hurry off to their lessons, their sandals tapping against stone. Yet in every gesture lies the echo of the offering, a calmness, a steadiness, as though the ritual has woven itself into the fabric of the day. You linger near the impluvium, watching the water ripple where a drop has just fallen from the roof. It widens in circles, then stills, mirroring the square of sky once more. The Narration glows in the corner, its lamp steady, its guardians watching. And you realize that Rome is not held together by temples alone. It is held also by these smaller fires, tended each morning in quiet homes, where the gods stand as close as the breath of family itself. The morning has ripened into full day. Shadows shorten, light grows stronger, and the streets begin to swell with sound. At first, it is only a drum, a slow pulse that seems to echo the footsteps of the city itself. Then come the flutes, thin and bright, weaving a melody that winds around corners before the procession is even in sight. You turn into a broader street where people gather along the edges. Merchants leave their stalls, children climb onto steps and ledges, elders lean on staffs to find their view. The air carries a scent sharper than the bakeries and kitchens. Resin, smoke, the rich perfume of incense carried in bronze censers that swing gently as they are borne along. At last, the procession arrives. Priests in white robes lead the way, their garments edged with purple bands. They walk in steady rhythm, their eyes lifted, their lips moving in prayer too soft to catch above the music. Behind them, boys carry tall poles crowned with laurel and oak leaves, their branches swaying lightly with each step. The sunlight catches on the leaves, making them glint as though they were dusted with gold. Then come the bearers of statues. On wooden platforms rest images of the gods. Jupiter with his eagle, Juno with her scepter, Minerva with her helmet and spear. The bronze and marble faces seem alive in the shifting light, their presence both near and untouchable. Men strain beneath the weight of the platforms, yet their steps remain even, as though the burden itself lends them strength. The crowd bows their heads as each god passes, a wave of reverence flowing outward like ripples across water. More priests follow, carrying vessels of wine and baskets of fruit, offerings that will later be laid upon an altar. Their hands are steady, their gestures deliberate, every movement shaped by years of practice. The air thickens with fragrance as more incense burns, the smoke curling upward in long white ribbons. Children in the crowd stretch out their hands, and a priest blesses them with a gesture as he passes, touching 2 fingers lightly to his brow. Mothers whisper words of thanks. Men lift their arms briefly in salute before letting them fall again. The procession does not pause, yet it seems to touch everyone it passes, leaving behind a trace of calm. The music swells. Drums beat in slow unison, deep and resonant. Flutes thread their bright lines above, while cymbals clash softly at measured intervals, sparks of sound in the steady tide. The whole street becomes an instrument, its walls echoing the rhythm, its stones vibrating with the steps of dozens moving as one. At a crossroads, the procession halts. An altar has been raised there, simple but dressed with garlands of flowers and branches of laurel. The statues are set carefully beside it, their presence commanding without force. Priests step forward, lifting their arms. One pours wine onto the altar stone, the liquid running dark and then vanishing. Another breaks bread and scatters it in pieces, the fragments resting on the surface like small offerings of sunlight. A hush falls. The prayers spoken are low, but the silence of the crowd allows them to carry. The words speak of gratitude for the harvest, of hope for safe travels, of strength for the city. They are not dramatic, but steady, like the voice of Rome itself speaking through the mouths of its guardians. When the prayers end, the music begins again. The procession lifts its burden and continues down the street. The crowd exhales as one, then begins to move as well, following slowly, their footsteps light, their voices low. Children run ahead, laughing, but even their laughter seems softened, folded into the larger rhythm. You walk with them, the incense clinging faintly to your clothes, the sound of drums guiding your steps. The statues rise above the crowd, like calm islands in a moving sea. The city bends itself around them, its noise transformed into something measured, something shared. And as the procession winds onward, you realize that this is not a spectacle to be watched, but a current to be carried in. Rome itself walks here, not in the bricks of its walls or the stones of its streets, but in the steady prayer of its people, in their breath, their voices, their offerings. The gods move through the city, and the city moves with them. The procession winds its way up the broad steps of the capital. Here, the largest temple crowns the hill, its columns vast, its roofline sharp against the sky. The air grows quieter as people gather, for even the murmur of thousands bends into reverence in this place. The drums fall silent. Only the light sound of sandals upon stone remains as the priests and attendants take their places. The altar stands at the top, carved of pale marble, its surface worn smooth by centuries of offerings. It waits, steady, unyielding, as smoke from braziers curls upward in white streams. The statues of the gods are set before it, their bronze faces reflecting the steady flame of torches now lit against the growing day. Each god seems to gaze outward, across the city below, as though to remind Rome that its walls and streets are watched, guarded, judged. Priests prepare the space. One sprinkles water from a branch of laurel, droplets scattering like silver dust in the sunlight. Another scatters grain across the altar stone, the kernels falling with a soft patter. A third pours wine into a shallow bowl, its surface rippling as the liquid catches the light. Every gesture is deliberate, each movement shaped by centuries of repetition until the act itself has become sacred. Then comes the moment of offering. An attendant leads forward the animal, a white bull, its hide gleaming, its horns tipped with gilded caps. Its eyes are calm, its breath steady, as though it knows its place in the ritual. The crowd hushes further, the silence spreading outward like a tide. The chief priest lifts his hands and speaks. His voice is low, yet carries clearly, shaped by years of practice, by the weight of tradition. He invokes the gods by name, asking their favor upon the city, their protection for the harvest, their blessing upon the Senate and people of Rome. His words are steady, without flourish, but their gravity fills the air more surely than the smoke itself. A flute begins, thin and high, its notes circling the silence. Drums answer with the faintest pulse, slower than a heartbeat. The music does not distract. It binds. It holds the moment, stretches it, allows every person present to feel themselves within it. The animal is sprinkled with water and touched with the blade to mark it. The priest speaks the final prayer, and the sacrifice is made. It is swift, efficient, without spectacle. The act is not meant to shock, but to seal, to confirm the bond between mortal and divine. The bull falls, the crowd exhales, and the smoke rises heavier now as the offering is laid upon the altar. The scent changes. Herbs are cast into the fire, mingling with the smell of burning flesh. It is sharp, potent, filling the air until breath itself feels like part of the ritual. The smoke climbs high, caught in the light of the sun, spreading across the sky in broad strokes. For a moment, it seems as though the very heavens have been painted with the gift of Rome. The prayers continue as the fire consumes the offering. Words of thanks are spoken, words of hope repeated. The priests raise their arms and the crowd follows, thousands of hands lifted toward the sky. The gesture is not frantic. It is slow, united, steady, as if the entire city breathes out one long plea, one long gratitude. When the final words are spoken, the music rises in fuller voice. Flutes trill, drums beat, cymbals strike once, their sharp sound carrying across the hill. It is not celebration but affirmation, a note of closure, a seal upon the morning. The fire burns on, its smoke still trailing upward. The priests withdraw in silence, their faces calm, their garments touched with ash. The crowd slowly stirs, voices returning in low tones, footsteps resuming their patient rhythm. The sacrifice is complete, but its weight lingers. The altar smokes, the gods have been honored, and the city breathes easier in the knowledge of their favor. You step back from the hill and look down at Rome spread below. Its roofs and streets stretch outward like lines drawn carefully upon parchment. Its people move like the current of a river, steady and sure. And above them all, the smoke still rises, not fading, but joining the sky, carrying with it the prayers of a city that has always known how to kneel and how to rise again. The sacrifice has ended, but the day is not finished. From the temple steps, the crowd spills back into the city like water flowing downhill. Yet the silence of the rite does not last, it transforms. Where reverence once held the breath, celebration now fills it. Along the broad avenue, stalls have been set. Garlands of flowers hang across doorways, their petals bright against stone. Musicians take their places at the corners, lyres and flutes joining in lively songs that skip through the air. The scent of roasting meat mingles with honey cakes and fresh bread. Incense still drifts faintly, but it is joined now by the sharper smoke of torches and braziers, lighting the streets with a golden haze. The people gather not in quiet lines, but in circles and clusters. Men clap their hands to the rhythm of drums. Women sway gently with garlands in their hair. Children dart between legs, their laughter rising higher than the music, carrying joy in bright bursts. The city seems to widen in every direction, its walls no longer boundaries, but frames for the celebration. Actors in masks appear upon small platforms, their faces painted white and red, their gestures broad, their voices loud enough to carry over the crowd. They perform short scenes of comedy, of quarrels and reconciliations, their words exaggerated, their motions playful. The people laugh freely, the kind of laughter that shakes the body, that clears away solemnity without breaking reverence. For even in comedy, the gods are honored, their stories retold, their lessons made bright with humor. Elsewhere, dancers move in lines, their feet quick, their arms weaving garlands in the air. The rhythm is light, repetitive, almost hypnotic, and soon the crowd claps along, thousands of hands joining into one steady beat. The sound echoes down the streets, turning the entire city into a drum. Vendors call, their voices mingling with the songs. They sell cups of sweet wine, warm nuts glazed with honey, skewers of roasted meat dripping with juice. Coins clink steadily, laughter answers, and the air grows thick with the scent of abundance. The festival is not only ritual, it is life itself, lifted higher, brighter, and shared. At the center of the avenue, an altar has been raised, smaller than the temples but bright with flowers and ribbons. Here the priests pause once more, laying simple offerings, grain, fruit, a little wine. The people gather around, not in silence this time, but in song. Voices rise together, carrying a hymn that is both prayer and celebration. The words speak of joy, of thanks, of the God's presence, not only in solemn rites, but in laughter, in food, in the warmth of community. As evening nears, torches are lit in greater number. The flames sway in the breeze, their smoke trailing upward to join the last light of the sun. The streets glow with gold and red, shadows leaping across walls, faces brightened, eyes shining. The festival does not dim with the sun, it grows. Music grows louder, feet quicker, laughter richer. The city itself seems to dance, and yet beneath the sound lies a thread of reverence. Every laugh is a gift, every song an offering, every step a part of the prayer. The gods are not absent here. They are present in the very joy of the people, in the fullness of the day, in the light that lingers long after the sun has gone gore. The festival softens as night deepens. The drums quiet, the flutes grow faint, the laughter folds into murmurs carried away by the breeze. Torches still burn, their flames swaying in lines along the streets, but the smoke has thinned, drifting into the stars above. The air holds the warmth of the day, mixed now with the cool edge of evening. Families begin their walk home. Children, drowsy from the excitement, lean against their mother's arms. Men carry bundles of food left unfinished. Women hold garlands now wilted but still fragrant. The streets, though still lit, no longer press with the weight of crowds. They breathe, wide and steady, like a river returning to its calm after a long flood. The priests make their final rounds. At smaller altars they scatter the last handfuls of grain, pour the last drops of wine. Their voices are low, steady, carrying simple words of closure. Thanks given, blessings extended, promises renewed. A censer swings one last time, releasing its thread of smoke into the cooling air. It curls upward and disappears into the night sky, as if carried by unseen hands. In the houses, the lararia glow once more. Fathers relight the small lamps, mothers lay down figs or olives saved from the day. Children murmur short prayers before sleep, their eyelids heavy, their voices barely more than breath. The flames flicker in the corners of the rooms, steady companions through the darkness, guardians of hearth and dream. From the hills, the great temples keep their vigil. Their columns are black silhouettes against the stars, their roofs outlined by torchlight. Inside, the fires upon the altars burn low but constant. The gods need no rest, and their houses do not sleep. The city lies beneath their gaze, quiet and unafraid. You step into the forum one last time before rest. It is nearly empty now. Only a few figures cross its stones, their footsteps hollow and slow. The marble shines faintly in the starlight, reflecting the sky like a shallow pool. The silence is complete, yet not empty. It is full with the weight of the day, with the smoke and songs and prayers that still seem to linger in the air. You lift your eyes. The stars are steady, cold and clear. Between them, the faint trails of smoke from the last torches rise and vanish. The night smells of ash, of oil, of flowers pressed into garlands hours ago. It is not a heavy scent, but a memory, folded gently into the breath of the city. Rome sleeps. Its houses close their doors, their lamps burn low, their courtyards hold the soft rhythm of sleep. The streets fall silent, the stones cooling, the air settling into stillness. Only the gods remain fully awake, their temples alive with quiet fire, their statues steady against the dark. You feel the city beneath you, vast yet calm, Every prayer, every offering, every song has folded into this silence, and the silence has received them. The day ends not with noise, but with balance. And as you turn toward your own rest, you know you walk under watchful eyes, carried into sleep by the same rhythm that carries Rome itself. A rhythm older than walls, older than empire, a rhythm that will outlast the night. The day has folded itself away. The last voices of the festival drift like smoke, fading into the quiet that gathers over the city. The sun has gone, and in its place the moon climbs, slow and pale, spilling silver across the rooftops. Every tile gleams faintly, each stone holds a whisper of the day's warmth, now released in gentle breaths into the night air. The streets lie calmer than before. Where laughter once spilled, there is now only the tap of a guard's sandal as he makes his round. Torches burn lower, their flames small and steady, painting narrow pools of gold upon the cobblestones. Between them, the darkness stretches soft, not threatening, but restful, like a cloak drawn over the shoulders of the city. You walk along a quiet lane. The air smells faintly of bread cooling in ovens, of oil lamps burning low, of flowers that have closed their petals until morning. From open windows comes the hush of families at rest, a mother humming to a child, a man setting aside his sandals, the creak of a bed frame easing beneath tired bodies. The sounds are gentle, too soft to disturb, too steady to vanish. They are the sounds of Rome in repose. At the corner of a small square, a fountain murmurs. Its water falls in thin streams, catching the moonlight in silver threads before breaking into a quiet pool. The ripples spread outward in slow circles, touching the edge of the basin and returning inward again, never hurried, never lost. You pause to watch, the cool air damp with its breath, the stone bench beside it smooth and inviting. Here the city seems to sigh, a long exhale after the weight of the day. Farther off, the Tiber moves with its ancient patience. You cannot see it clearly from here, but its presence is felt. The faint rush of water against stone, the smell of damp earth carried on the breeze. The river has carried the city through centuries, and tonight it carries its dreams as well, flowing past walls, under bridges, toward the sea that waits without haste. Above, the stars sharpen. They pierce the sky in patterns known and unnamed, their cold light steady where torches flicker. The moon sits full, serene, watching as it has always watched, its silver gaze falling across every roof, every arch, every sleeping face. Rome lies open beneath it, a vast body at rest, its heart still beating, its breath slowed, its dreams beginning to form. You sit at the fountain, your hand brushing the stone edge, cool and damp. The sound of water lulls your thoughts, each drop a note in the music of silence. The air is neither heavy nor cold but balanced, the perfect weight for rest. The city does not demand anything now. It only holds you gently as the night spreads further and deeper, wrapping Rome in its endless, patient embrace. You rise from the fountain and continue along the lane. The stones beneath your sandals are cool now, their heat of the day fully gone. Each step sounds sharper in the emptiness, yet the echoes do not disturb. They fold back into the silence, absorbed as though the city has learned to carry every sound gently at night. A guard appears at the far end of the street. His torch burns small, its light drawing a narrow circle around him. The bronze of his helmet glints faintly, his spear rests steady in his hand. He walks with measured pace, his eyes alert but calm, nodding briefly as he passes you. His footsteps fade behind you, joining the rhythm of others unseen, keeping watch across the city. From a courtyard, the sound of a dog stirs. A single bark, sharp at first, then softer, as if reminding itself that the night is secure. Another answers faintly in the distance, and then all is quiet again. The dogs know this hour belongs to stillness. They speak only enough to affirm it. You pass under an arch where a lamp burns in a small niche. The flame is faint, yet it holds the darkness at bay. Its smoke curls upward against the stone, tracing lines that vanish as soon as they are drawn. Beneath it, someone has left a small offering, a sprig of rosemary, a crust of bread, a few coins. The air smells faintly of herbs and wax, a reminder that even at night, reverence does not sleep. The streets grow wider, then narrow again, their walls rising high and close. Windows are shuttered, doors closed, but behind them come soft whispers of life, a cough, a turning body, the rustle of straw mats. Each sound is faint, but together they weave a fabric of rest. Rome breathes through its houses as steadily as a sleeper through the night. At a crossroads, a shrine stands small and plain. Its statue is worn, its paint faded, but its lamp glows bright. The flame wavers as a breeze passes, then steadies again, holding firm. You pause to watch it, feeling how even the smallest fire can stand against the vast dark. The shrine hums with devotion, not loud, not proud, but persistent, the kind that endures because it is renewed each night. Far away, the murmur of the Tiber drifts once more, mingled now with the faint creak of a cartwheel, late on the road. The sound is brief, swallowed quickly by silence. The city does not reject it. It absorbs it, softens it, folds it into the lullaby that the night has become. You breathe deeply. The air is cool, tinged with smoke, touched by the faint sweetness of flowers that bloom only at night. The scent is delicate, almost hidden, yet present enough to remind you that Rome's beauty does not end with the sun. It shifts, it deepens, it waits. The streets guide you onward. Their stones glimmer faintly beneath the moon, their lines steady, their silence complete. You feel the city around you like a vast body at rest. Every arch a rib, every street a vein, every lamp a heartbeat. You walk within it, unhurried, carried by its calm. Rome sleeps, and in its sleep it holds you as gently as it holds its dreams. The streets slope downward, and the sound of water grows clearer. It begins as a hush, then a murmur, until at last you step onto the embankment where the Tiber flows. The river glimmers beneath the moon, its surface shifting silver, its ripples catching light and carrying it away. It moves without hurry, steady and ancient, its current a voice that has spoken through centuries. Stone walls rise on either side, worn smooth where water has lapped for generations. Bridges stretch across the dark, their arches black against the stars. Torches burn at their ends, small flames mirrored in the water below, trembling as the current bends them. The air here is cool, touched by damp earth and the faint smell of reeds. It feels like stepping into the city's oldest memory. You sit upon a low step near the bank. The stone is cool beneath you, its surface rough with age. The water's rhythm fills your ears, not loud, not soft, but constant, as though it speaks in a language older than words. Each wave folds into the next, each sound balanced by silence, together forming a lullaby without end. From the shadows a fisherman passes, his net slung over one shoulder. He nods, his steps slow, his presence quiet as the river itself. A dog trots behind him, pausing once to drink, then moving on, its reflection shimmering in broken silver across the current. Their figures fade into the night, leaving only the sound of water once more. The moon leans lower, casting a long path of light across the river's back. It seems to invite the city into its dream, pulling its reflection into a dance that stretches from bank to bank. The ripples scatter stars, breaking them apart, then drawing them together again. For a moment, it feels as though sky and water have become one, folding the world into a single, endless embrace. Voices drift faintly from across the river, a late gathering at a tavern, laughter softened by distance. The sound carries gently, light as mist, touching your ears without breaking the calm. It reminds you that life continues even in rest, that Rome dreams not in silence alone, but in the murmur of its people carried upon the water. You breathe deeply. The air cools your chest, fills you with the same patience that moves through the river. The weight of the day slips further, carried downstream, leaving only lightness behind. The Tiber keeps flowing, tireless, serene, as though it gathers the dreams of the city and bears them away to the sea. You rise once more, the sound of water following your steps. It does not diminish with distance. It lingers, a thread tied gently to your ear, reminding you that Rome's heart does not sleep but flows ceaselessly. And as you leave the bank, you carry its rhythm within you, a calm that steadies each step into the night. You leave the river behind, its murmur still threading your thoughts, and climb gently toward the heart of the city. The streets are nearly empty now, only a few figures crossing in silence, their torches flickering low. Ahead, the Forum spreads out in quiet grandeur, its stones washed pale by the moon. Columns rise like pale sentinels, their shadows stretched long across the marble pavement. The temples stand silent, their doors closed, their steps empty, yet the air around them feels awake. Moonlight clings to their pediments, outlining carvings of gods and heroes in silver. The statues glow faintly, their faces softened, their gazes turned outward as if keeping watch over the sleeping city. You step into the square. Your sandals click softly on the slabs, each sound swallowed quickly into stillness. The Forum, so crowded in the day with merchants, senators, and petitioners, now lies open and vast, its silence almost tender. Where voices once tangled, only the whisper of wind remains, curling through arches and colonnades. A fountain gurgles faintly near the basilica. Its water catches the moonlight, each droplet a brief star before breaking into the pool below. The sound is steady, calm, as though reminding the stones that time still flows even when the city rests. You pause there, listening, your breath joining the rhythm until you can no longer tell which is yours and which is the fountain's. From the steps of the Curia, an owl calls once, its note deep and solitary. The sound carries across the square, echoes against stone, then fades. It feels less like intrusion and more like acknowledgement, as though the night itself has spoken and confirmed its dominion here. You walk past the Arch of Septimius, its reliefs glimmering faintly. Scenes of battle carved in stone soften in the moonlight until they seem almost like dreams, their edges blurred, their noise stilled. What was once triumph and struggle now rests quietly, history asleep within marble. At the center, you stop and lift your eyes. Above, the stars shine between the columns, framed by stone like jewels set in an ancient crown. The moon rests above the Capitoline, its light falling across the Forum in a wide, calm veil. It is not harsh, it is gentle, steady, like a hand laid upon the city's brow. You breathe the air of the Forum at night, cool, faintly scented with marble and dust, touched by the smoke of distant lamps. It fills you slowly, easing your chest, lengthening your breath. Here among the stones you feel both small and endless, one figure in a vast square, yet also part of the rhythm that has bound this place for centuries. The Forum does not sleep entirely, it dreams. Its arches and columns stand like thoughts half-formed, its temples like sentences waiting to be spoken at dawn. You stand within that dream, quiet, still, carried not forward or back but inward, deeper into the calm that Rome offers at night. You leave the Forum behind, its columns still glowing in moonlight, and walk down a narrow lane toward the residential quarter. The stones are darker here, the shadows deeper, but the quiet is complete, welcoming rather than foreboding. A single torch burns at the corner, its flame soft, its smoke faint, guiding your steps without hurry. You pass doorways closed tight for the night. From within comes the hush of sleep. The creak of a bed frame, the sigh of someone turning, the faint murmur of a dream half-spoken. Dogs lie curled near thresholds, lifting their heads only briefly before settling again. The city's pulse slows here, every sound drawn low, every movement softened. At last, you enter a house. The atrium is dim, lit only by a single lamp left upon the small shrine. Its flame is no taller than a finger, yet its glow fills the room gently, casting golden arcs across the water of the impluvium. The surface trembles faintly where a drop falls from the roof, the ripples spreading in rings of light. The Narration waits in the corner, its painted figures lit softly by the lamp. The offering from morning still rests there. A sprig of laurel, a fig, a shallow bowl with a trace of wine. The air carries a faint sweetness, the scent of oil and smoke mingled with the cool breath of night. The gods do not sleep. They keep watch in silence, their presence steady, their patience endless. You walk softly into a side chamber. There the family lies at rest. Children curled beneath light blankets, their breath steady, their hands tucked close. The mother's face is calm. The father's chest rises and falls with the rhythm of a deep, unbroken sleep. Even the slave on his mat breathes evenly, his body slack, his burdens forgotten for the moment. The room smells of wool and straw, of bread cooling in the kitchen, of the faint trace of herbs left from the evening meal. The lamp's glow spills across the floor, touches the edges of the walls, and then settles into stillness. Nothing moves now except breath. The air is thick with rest, with the kind of silence that is not empty but filled. Filled with dreams, with calm, with the promise of dawn. You stand a while, listening. The sound of sleep is the most tender music. The sigh of a child, the shift of cloth, the gentle rhythm of lungs. It carries no demand, no weight, only peace. In this room the world has paused, folded itself into the simple act of rest. You step back into the atrium, leaving the family to their dreams. The lamp still burns, the water still ripples faintly, the shrine still glows in its corner. The house holds its silence like a shell holds the sea, every sound within softened, every shadow gentle. Here night is not an absence but a gift, a space where the city learns to breathe again. The lamp burns lower, its flame bending softly as if bowing to the night. The house is silent now, every chamber steeped in calm, every breath drawn slow and deep. You lie upon a couch, the cushion cool against your cheek, the blanket light upon your body. The air smells faintly of oil, of stone cooled by moonlight, of herbs that linger from the day's offerings. It is the scent of rest itself. Your eyes grow heavy. The sounds of the city fade further. The last bark of a distant dog, the final step of a guard turning a corner, the whisper of wind through an arch. Each falls away like a thread released from the hand. Only the silence remains, a silence that holds you as surely as the city holds its stones. In that silence, dreams begin. At first, they are only fragments. The glint of helmets in the Colosseum, the shimmer of mosaics beneath lamplight, the scent of bread warm from the oven. Then the pieces join, flowing one into another, baths steaming with fragrant oils, processions winding with laurel branches, laughter spilling from a banquet. Each memory softens into haze, reshaped not by reason but by the quiet hand of sleep. The Forum appears again, but now its columns glow not with moonlight alone, but with a light that seems to rise from within the stone. The river sings more sweetly, its ripples humming in tones no ear has heard before. The gods stand at their altars, but their faces are kind, their eyes closed as though they too dream with you. The city breathes slowly, each inhale vast, each exhale gentle, carrying you deeper into rest. You float through its arches, its streets, its temples, but no longer as a visitor. You move as if weightless, belonging, carried by the current of its dream. Every lamp flickers in rhythm with your breath. Every shadow bends softly, not to hide but to cradle. The city and your body fall asleep together, two vessels sharing the same tide. At last, even the images fade. Only warmth remains and the steady rhythm of a heart, your own and Rome's, beating as one. You drift further and further until there is no square, no street, no river, no temple. Only calm, only quiet, only the long embrace of sleep. And so the night carries you as it carries the city into dreams without edge, into silence without end. The city has grown silent now. The markets are empty, the temples dark, the torches dim. Only the stars remain, steady above the rooftops, watching as Rome rests. You have walked its streets, bathed in its waters, sat at its feasts, prayed at its shrines. You have heard the roar of the games, the murmur of the river, the hush of the Forum at midnight. All of Rome has passed before you, and now it drifts away like smoke fading into the sky. Your breath is slow, your body is calm. The rhythm of the city has become the rhythm of your heart. There's nothing left to do, nowhere left to go. Only rest, only sleep. And as you drift further into dreams, know that Rome drifts with you, steady, eternal, gentle, holding you in its embrace until morning comes. Good night, traveler. Sleep well.